right, we should be live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to TSPLOST 2023 project presentations meeting number 10 for Monday, October 4th. I have a couple questions, but I'm going to let us go and approve the minutes first. Let me show the agenda and the minutes.
So as you look at those minutes, just make sure that I haven't looked at them yet. I don't remember the attendee list. So we're the three that are marked absent. Did any of y'all let them show for any part of the meeting?
Wasn't Travis here?
Or did we get some wrong? I just want to make sure we got everybody's attendance right.
Can we, if there are any corrections, will you please put them in the chat now? And I have to say, all the meetings last week are kind of running together for me. Because we did 3.
This would be Wednesdays.
Yeah. I know y'all are on top of it. It's just my brain. All right, so no corrections to the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, September 29th.
So moved.
Okay,
Seconded.
That's first from Jeff, second from Teresa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes carry. So we have just one more night of regular presentations before we go into the alternates discussion. And Keith, I was noticing that we have just 3 presentations for Wednesday night. Is that right?
Is it down to 3? I was thinking it was 4 or 5, but it's a lot less on Wednesday. Yes.
I think
Okay.
Ashley said 3, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I was wondering if the committee would like to reserve some time after our presentations for general discussion. Since we will finish pretty early, and I think that we can have, maybe I can find a way to facilitate some discussion and we can still leave before 9:30. Yeah, sound good?
Sounds great. We need it.
All right, so I will work with Keith and Ashley on that for to add that to the agenda. And I'll think about the best way to facilitate a general discussion on almost 90 projects. So bear with me there, but hopefully we can at least get some thoughts out before we go into alternate territory. Keith, can you remind me real quick how those 2 alternate project meetings will go next week?
We will do our best to go through as in a speed dating fashion. Those alternates is there's not everybody is submitting alternates. If I look back, try to find the list real quick. There's and I know Ashley has this number off the top of her head, but there's probably at least 15 or so that are not submitting alternates. And then of course the ones for tonight and the ones Wednesday aren't due yet. So, and then we don't have a full 91 to go through. So I think we really will just go through quickly and touch on what the difference in price is and what they changed in scope. We'll have it posted online. I got through about 15 or 20 of them today reviewing that Ashley will get posted. And so that's really all we're going to do is go through those, what changed and the dollar value change.
Gotcha. And then Alan has a really great question in the chat. Alan, do you want to ask that?
Sure. Yeah, I was just thinking as I'm trying to wrap my head around which projects to come out in favor of, just being able to plug them into the voting tool that allows us to only plug in a certain dollar amount and just kind of begin to play around with that without submitting it, of course. But just so I can say, okay, if I were spending the money today, I'd put it in here, and then we can have the discussion, and I'll probably change my mind on a bunch of them, but at least I will have come up with something. So do we have access to that tool yet?
No, because we've got the Ashley and Patty in our office are working on getting that built with the current dollars. What we showed you before was the one from the previous program, so they have not gotten that built out. And until we have the alternates in it, it wouldn't be accurate with the alternate projects. And so we won't have that probably until sometime next week.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, thank you.
But as soon as we have it, we'll get it to you as early as we can. So that you
Great.
can do that.
I know I'm wanting to play around with that too. So thank you, Alan, for that question. And thank you to Ashley and Patty for working so hard for us. All right. So I guess this is our last big full night of project presentations. And yeah, and maybe just to remind the viewers, like we're an advisory committee and we are just regular people like the people who are coming up here to present. Of course, we have a lot of ACC staff pitching their transportation proposals, but we're just like a lot of these residents here. And we got some tough decisions to make coming up. It's gonna be hard, but we'll have a great list no matter what we come up with. And the Mayor and Commission will refine that. And we will not be short on excellent projects. So with that, I would like to begin presentations. It's 5:42. First up tonight, project number 67, expanding access to Sandy Creek Park via multi-use trail, was submitted by Troy. Troy, I see that you're on the list. Are you presenting tonight?
Yep.
Wonderful. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah,
Now,
thank you.
do you need for us to pedal your presentation or you
I
got
was
it?
hoping to do it. I spoke with Ashley about it. So luckily I had to quit and restart, but I think the share tool is working now. But I've never used WebEx, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
No problem. Well, if it doesn't work out, we've got a spare bike on standby for you.
Cool.
But just select that share button and then select the content for your presentation versus your screen, and it should be.
Oh, so I see what you're saying. Okay. Let's see if it works.
There you go. So I'll give you give you a cue at 9 minutes that you got 1 minute left, and other than that, we'll leave you alone till you finish, and then we'll ask questions.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I it should be short and sweet. Let's get it started. So yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Troy Simon. Like was said, I'm one of the regular people. I'm not Athens-Clarke County staff, but I did work with Leisure Services to make sure that the project was on target for their goals and it met our goals. So what we're going to be talking about is expanding access to Sandy Creek Park via a multi-use trail. Here we go. So background. So we're talking specifically about the North Athens community, and you could define that several different ways, but the area that I'm talking about is specifically areas east of 441, north of the Loop, and then kind of bounded by 29 where that new Kroger is out north of town. So the area in red here. It's kind of close to the county triangle. I don't know if people are familiar, but if you go out Nowhere Road, you hit Jackson County. There's like this little finger of Jackson County, and then you got Madison County, you got Athens, all together right here in this little corner. So this area is a diverse majority minority community based on the 2020 census information. It's 54% Black, 23% Hispanic, 20% white. And this is a little blow up. So again, here, just to kind of give you reference, this is Nowhere Road. this is the loop, and then this is Highway 29 again. So we're talking again about this area here where the community is. So this is an area that in the past has had limited county services. So it's a historically underserved community. We currently still don't have trash pickup. Most people don't have any kind of sewer access. Water came recently in the past 10 years to most people. Fire station came not that long ago finally. So things are starting to pick up. We're starting to get more services. But one thing in particular that is severely lacking that most people will mention if you talk to them is there's no public park or recreational area for this part of town north of the loop. So there is no safe place really to exercise out here. So this is a picture of Smoky Road, one of the roads that runs through this area. And the traffic is fast. It's like 55 miles an hour. Typically there's zero shoulder, narrow roads. And usually if you want to safely like walk to your neighbor's house, typically you'll walk in the margins, or, if you want to take a walk with the dog, you have to end up walking in the margin there, which a lot of times isn't mowed. And a lot of people actually still do jog and exercise all along the roadway, but it's dangerous. And, if you drive the area, you'll see a lot of blind turns, for example, that are out there. And that being said, most people who probably want to exercise that I've spoken with just aren't able to, because there's just nowhere for them to do it unless they just want to, I guess, walk around their house. So you probably noticed in that map that there is an opportunity here, because you can see Sandy Creek Park is right next to this area that we live in. Very, very close. But, the problem is currently, a lot of us live like right in here. But in order to access Sandy Creek Park, you got to drive all the way down Nowhere Road or Danielsville Road, and you got to go all the way onto the loop and then like loop this giant oval back into the park. Usually it's about 15, 20 minutes, maybe longer, depending on traffic. And again, you're having to drive in the loop in 441 to access it. Despite the fact that like the county property literally backs up to the neighborhood. Like it's walkable for a lot of people, but unfortunately, this is really all you see from our side of the park. There's no access. All you see is a gate with a driveway and government property, no trespassing. So we would like to fix that. So the solution, Sandy Creek Park is right here. It provides ample recreational activities for everybody without having to build a new park. It's right there. It's just waiting to be snatched up. Obviously, it's the largest park in the county, 782 acres. There's swimming, there's a beach, there's fishing. 16 miles of walking trails would give people plenty of places to exercise their feet, walk their dogs, do whatever they need to do. There's sports fields there, obviously, and plenty of places if people want to ride their bike around through the park through there. Now here's the ask. So this is the plan that we worked on with Leisure Services. So here is where that little sign in the gate was saying there's no access. This is Nowhere Road, which basically bounds the edge of the community that I'm talking about. And so we're proposing a paved parking lot for 25 cars for people to park, and then a paved multi-use trail approximately half a mile, which you'll notice here, it's following contours, so it's nice and flat, into the park and links up on the backside of the park, if people are familiar with the park, the campsite drive. So from there, you could access any part of the park via walking or on a bicycle. And then folks who park in the parking lot can pay to park via the ACC mobile app. So there's no loss in revenues for the park for people accessing it from that side. And again, this is a paved trail that could be wheelchair accessible, powered by the person in the wheelchair or a powered wheelchair. It's going to be a very, usable trail. So what's the impact? This is a nice picture of part of the property that I'm talking about, the multi-use trail going through. It's beautiful. It would be really nice to get more people out there into that section of town, especially since the county already owns it. So this would clearly provide equitable access to existing county facilities for folks on the north side of town who don't have any recreational areas that they can currently call their own and utilize. It would save 15 minutes and 7 miles of driving for most people. So clearly it would also reduce wear and tear on the roads, on the loop and 441 and all the roads in between. And also, like I said before, it promotes the health and safety of the residents. The people who are brave enough to walk and run along the roads and ride their bike along the roads, I'm always waiting for the day when there's going to be a fatal accident from people driving 55 around a blind turn and somebody is walking their dog. But then, of course, the people who don't have the ability to get out there, or they're not brave enough to get on the streets, like I don't run on the streets, they would have a place they could go to exercise. And then another key point actually in this area is all the people I spoke with were really excited about the idea of having access to Sandy Creek Park, but nobody liked TSPLOST where I live because everybody said we've never had a project from TSPLOST. We're not a part of that. Like, why would we want to pay for something we never see anything, any of the benefits from? But they did like the idea of using the money for this project so that they have an investment in the program. So I think by doing this, you'd expand a great amount of the voting base. So like I said up here, there's 10,000 approximately. That's conservative. 10,000 residents in that area based on the 2020 census that are like within less than 5 minutes from that new parking lot that we're proposing. So that would be a lot of people that would, you could get excited about future TSPLOST programs. And then I'll just throw this out there also. So back here on the map, so here's the county park. If we get this multi-use trail and parking lot installed here for the North Athens community off Nowhere Road, the plans are eventually, hopefully, to have a greenway that runs from Sandy Creek Park all the way down to the Nature Center. And then from the Nature Center, there's an existing greenway that goes into town. So folks, if they wanted to, could actually commute all the way into town from the most rural area in Athens-Clarke County by bicycle, road bike, whatever you want, because it's all paved multi-use trails. So I, for example, have to drive into, to work and it's 20 minutes typically. But, I could probably get there in 30 minutes on a bike, and I would love to get the exercise again because I used to cycle as a primary source of commuting, but I moved out to a farm in this area and I haven't been able to ride my bike since because it's just not safe. So it'd be great to think, thinking about that moving forward, it'd be a good investment. So here's the community that people wrote letters and attached them into the application. I know it's a virtual meeting, so we can't see people's faces, but these are the people, a lot of people were in support of this, but these are the people who supported it so much that they actually wrote letters and attached them. And I actually didn't even get pictures of all the people who wrote letters because I was crunched for time before these presentations were due. But just so you can get an idea of the people who really want this, everybody I spoke with really wanted this. And I was amazed by the amount of folks who were willing to write letters in support of this because it's a no-brainer. The park is right there and we just don't have access to it. So, all right, well, I'll end it there. And are we asking people how to ask questions now or?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
And Alex Bond from Leisure Services is also here. So it's possible that if there's a technical question that I can't answer, I might call on Alex to weigh in a little bit, but.
Of course,
anyway,
yeah.
That's all.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Troy. Love this last slide. Would you mind taking down your presentation for now? I know some folks we might need to pull it back up for questions. But to start with, I have Daryl up. Go right ahead, Daryl.
Good evening. Out of all the ones that I've been looking at so far, this one I agree with. You have no backside access to Sandy Creek. No, I mean, you're 100% correct. I rode the road around it, seen how it went. There's no access unless you go a couple miles all the way around to get to Sandy Creek. So I like this project. I'm just gonna be truthful about it right here, right now. I like this project. It makes sense. The only thing that don't make sense to me about Sandy Creek is you don't give us veterans no free way to get in. I'm gonna work on it. Veterans don't get in for free. I ain't liking that. We should get in for free like state parks. But overall, I think this is I like this project. I mean, I really like this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
That's the only thing I can say. I like this project.
Teresa?
Yes, thank you. I also like this project. It's very sensible, but my question has to do with how many vehicles do you expect to be parking in the lot each day?
Well, it's hard to predict how many people are going to want to park in the parking lot each day. I mean, working with the county staff, I had originally suggested 15 just as a conservative number, and they were like, "I think you're going to see more than that." And so that they suggested 20. They were 2025 is what they were thinking would be reasonable based on experiences from other parks, I guess, around town. There's a few other parks that have this kind of like back entrance that they've made access to. I don't know if those actually have parking lots or not. It's more like a neighborhood entrance.
So I'm just curious if there's any concern on the part of the neighborhood. I mean, I realize it's, a lot of farm country and everybody's pretty spread out, but is anybody concerned about increased traffic? Or, people
No,
coming
it's
from
the
out of the
thing.
county or whatever?
Right. So if it was a road to access the park, so you could actually drive through the park and then come through Nowhere Road, several people acknowledged that they would be concerned about traffic. But the fact that it's a multi-use trail and it's only basically for folks who want to drive over there, mostly from our neighborhood, is what I would expect. That there isn't going to be increased traffic because it's just us not having to drive all the way around 20 minutes to access it, And the other thing to note is this is right off Nowhere Road, and there isn't like a neighborhood right there where this would be. It's a big field that the county owns, and then there's several homes that are like set back off Nowhere Road, but there are no homes that are like right next to it. For example, it's open area.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like putting in Legoland. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the I like this bandwagon, but I have a couple of questions that may be sort of outside the scope of the proposal. You said you would I guess, pay the entrance fee to the park by way of an app. It would be an unmanned entrance.
Correct.
And if you walked in or rode a bike in, it would be free.
Yeah.
And is that the case on the other side of the park?
I don't know.
If you do come in through Cook's Trail, there's no one who's going to charge admissions. I
Okay,
think
that's a fair point too.
It's Alex Bond. Yes, that is correct. If you come in on trail or come in under self-power, you do avoid the fee.
Really? Okay, thanks for letting me know that.
So there's not even a minor revenue loss by letting people slide in the back door. So, okay, all right. The only concern that I have, and I don't know if this is a problem or not, is you pay by an app, but does everybody have a phone these days? And I know the world fell apart because Facebook didn't work today. Maybe that does answer my question, but that was the only consideration I had for this idea. And maybe it's not a big deal, but if you could slide around and not be able to not pay to park there, then your parking lot would be full all day, every day, and the people who wanted to access it couldn't unless they rode in, I guess. But that was the only thing the only possible downside that popped into my head for this. So thanks,
Yeah.
Troy. This is cool.
We kicked around the idea of having the like National Forest style where you've got like a metal pole with a hole in an envelope and you put money in an envelope and stick it in there. But Alex said that there's all kinds of issues with those just getting stolen and it's pretty streamlined with the mobile app. And I guess they haven't had issues using that in the past. But I mean, that's a pretty easy fix, that wouldn't even require TSPLOST funds probably. It's the mobile app. It's already there, and if we needed to modify it somehow, it doesn't seem like it would be too big of a hurdle, but I don't see it as being an issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bob?
Great presentation, great project. You might find some people from Winterville parking there, actually. How bikeable is Nowhere Road?
Well, currently it's really heavily used by professional cyclists, I would call them, people who are wearing spandex. A lot of people ride that road, but there's no bike lanes, but it's a rural road that doesn't see heavy traffic, but at certain times, around 5 o'clock, 8 to 9, it can be pretty busy. But people in the neighborhood, there's not really good places to ride their bikes because just your regular guy or gal on a bike is going to be nervous if there's no bike lanes. But, having a place where you can just chuck your bikes in the back, and park and ride your bikes around, a lot of people expressed interest in being able to do that. a lot of people actually have old bikes in their garages because people in these communities, you know, they've lived here. Some of those folks have lived in this neighborhood for 50 years, and they've got old bikes sitting in their garage that are dusty because back when nobody was living out here, it was easy to ride your bike around. But now it's, you know, the speed limits are so high and the roads are kind of dangerous because of that they don't use them anymore.
Yeah, thanks.
Daryl, you had another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. I have went around that road, and you don't want to ride no bikes around Nowhere Road. It's called Nowhere for a reason. Okay? You don't want to go around there ride no bikes and don't know how them curves is around there. I wouldn't ride no bike around there.
Yeah, mostly, like I said, I see professional cyclists, and I didn't have a car for a long time. I lived in Athens till I moved out to the farm, but you know, it would be tough for me to ride into work without having a multi-use trail, you know, because not only, actually, you know what, not only safety, but also hills. There's a lot of hills out there, and that's why professional cyclists, or whatever you want to call them, typically will go out there. But on these greenway trails, typically they're following contours, and so most people would have no problem biking in on that. On the way home, usually it's kind of more uphill. The way into town, you can kind of fly down there.
I've biked Nowhere Road once.
Once.
All right, additional questions from the committee, folks who haven't spoken yet? And this is a pretty small comparatively project. Is there any way that you all would scale this back?
Well, so I would consider this pretty scaled back as is because, you know, we were originally talking about having a road through there, and that would have been a lot more. So I personally wanted to make this as easy of an ask as possible. So I've tried every possible way to make this as cheap of a project as possible. And, you know, just the format of the TSPLOST form kind of adds a significant amount, which is sort of out of my control. But, you know, right now it's a multi-use trail that's paved, and there's a parking lot that's paved, and those are all pretty hard fixed things for the county, because once these things are built, they got to be able to maintain them. And if there's not going to be money to re-gravel these things and keep them up. And I mean, look at Cook's Trail, it's gone because it was a soft trail. And so hopefully they'll put a multi-use trail on it, but this will be a permanent, fully ADA, beyond, you know, ADA accessible trail. The whole point of the whole TSPLOST is to make it not gravel, which was my original idea, but something that people could take a road bike on, or any kind of bike, any kind of wheelchair, anything, fully accessible. And that's what this would be.
Gotcha. And committee members, we did look at the Greenway Commission's proposal, which did potentially include fixing Cook's Trail. So that is a potential TSPLOST 2023 project. Andrea and then Madeline.
I think you kind of answered my question, which was going to be, did you consider any kind of like natural surface or gravel? And it sounds like that was your original for gravel.
Yeah, so my original plan was gravel, but, you know, working with the county, they know what the needs are, and they've had a lot of pushback from folks in wheelchairs who are handicapped, who want fully accessible parks. And I agree. I just thought it was going to be too much to ask for, but they were like, no, it's not too much. This is what you have to ask for, like, in order to make this fully multi-use for people to use for transportation, if they eventually want to use it to ride, even like I was saying, into town. But also, you know, this part of town has a lot of older people that live here. You know, I don't know, like in the pictures, you can see a lot of my neighbors on my street. Like I said, I've lived here for 50 years. Some of them are in their 80s, and they said that they, you know, wanted it to be as accessible as possible for elderly people. And so that's why, you know, between that and what the county was saying, that's why paved is the way to go.
Madeline, and then Jeff again.
You know, Troy, it's as if you were a ringer. It's just like one of the most outstanding presentations ever for me. So let me just add that. And I'd like to ask you and Alec, who I know and love well, if 20,000 people are served by this project, just truly, what real use do you see? You know, I mean, I know use builds up, but you know, and use is a tough word to use. And you know, it needs to include just the pleasure of the park. But and I know we have the public in those letters, and that speaks to desire. But you know, it's two and something $1 million. What real pent up use do you see, or realistic use?
So I guess I'll let Alex answer too, but I mean, from my perspective, there's a lot of folks out here who just want a place to take their dogs for a walk and you know, take advantage of nice weather when it is nice. And you know, honestly, from talking to people, they didn't want to see like a giant supermarket parking lot out there. And so in my opinion, 25, I was a little nervous about putting that many out there, but I think it needs to be that many because there's a lot of people who want to use it.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be full every day and we'll have to reconsider things in the future, but we won't know till it's there. So I see that being a solid amount of space for people to have access. So I don't know, but Alex can, if he wants to weigh in, can. If he's still here.
My sticky unmute button.
Oh.
The only thing I'll say is, just from a staff point of view, similar connecting nowhere road projects have been proposed in the past, have been part of a overarching, unofficial, official master plan for Sandy Creek Park. That entire parcel in the back we call Cook's property, not the same Cook as a lot of other Cook, but it's a whole parcel that's unengaged to this point. We just don't have the operational support to program that space. It's not in that number escaped me, but the whole number of acres for the park that Troy listed earlier does not include that parcel in the back.
Which is 70 acres.
Yeah, so it's a whole new area. And for us as a department, you know, there's great things to do with it, but the nice thing about a SPLOST or TSPLOST, we also get to capture what we anticipate are the operational costs. And it's our opportunity to get the project done and also ask for those operational costs, because it will be a little bit of, you know, we put some operational costs to this for checking the trail, making sure it's clean, going back and forth between the park itself and the parking lot, checking on the cars, all that kind of stuff. But I can't anticipate use. It's kind of a pie in the sky thing, build it and they will come. But just kind of outlining, it has been sought before, whether a driving road with a trail, or just a trail. It's been talked about before.
Right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Final questions, final discussion with our last minute or two. And those letters are attached to the project submission if anyone would like, if y'all would like to read them and hear from some residents who have been in the neighborhood for 40 years and 50 years.
Yeah, and I've got like 3 other ones that people sent me later that I didn't attach. I don't know if but you know, it's the same. Everybody wants it. And most people have lived here a long time.
Andrea, you want to close this out?
Yeah, I think my question might be more for Alex. Alex, in the past, I think that there had been discussion about maybe expanding some natural service trails that would be open to bikes through Cook's property. Would this project be still consistent with that use, or would it foreclose that use?
Yeah, no, this plan on its own would not undo any kind of other thoughts or plans or anything. It uses a fair amount of already established roadbed. We did follow the contour in the map that Troy shared. We did follow the contour technically off the property, and there is acquisition money tied in the project pricing, because we want to avoid adding another bridge. When Troy and I were talking about how much bridges that are multi-use trail cost, it's astronomical. So, but no, by building this trail, we would only, you know, leave more options on the table. We wouldn't take any away.
Thank you.
All right, Troy, thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. And thank you for including letters and pictures.
Yeah.
Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Okay. Okay, next on the list is Project 31, Historic District Street Signage. I believe we have Historic Athens, Tommy Valentine. Are you in the house?
I'm here.
Welcome, Tommy.
Thanks for having me.
Great. We are glad to have you. And do you want to drive your presentation, or would you like for Keith to do that for you?
Keith, do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you. It's a pretty simple, straightforward presentation.
Just tell me when, say next when you want the next slide.
All right, thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. All right, hi folks. I'm assuming my 10 minutes starts now, right, Lauren? Okay, great. So I see a lot of familiar faces here, folks that find themselves talking about or working on the historic space of Athens. And so right before we jump into what is a very short PowerPoint presentation for what is likely one of the least expensive projects on your list this year, I wanted to just talk about kind of a problem solution thing. So 3.5 years ago, when I had the fortune of starting as executive director of Historic Athens, I took a visit to the Georgia Trust in Atlanta, and they projected a sign of preservation projects around the state of Georgia over the last 15 years. And the type of project is a tax credit project, projects like Pond City Market. And, you know, all of us are from Athens. I know all of us want Athens to be #1 at everything. It's just what we do. And so I'm looking at the map, trying to see the number of projects Athens has compared to every other place. And what I'm noticing is, you know, like Macon area had like 70, Atlanta metro area had 100, the Savannah area had 144, Columbus and Augusta, you know, 40 or 50. So I'm looking for Athens and I'm looking for Athens. And what I ended up finding out was that we were tied basically neck and neck with Tybee Island. We had only had 7 projects in the last 15 years. And afterwards, I talked to Mark McDonald, who's the head of the Georgia Trust. And I said, what's going on here? You know, we're the classic city. You know, we're supposed to love history. What's going on? And what Mark said, and this is a word that probably all of you know, but I had to educate myself on this word. He used the word inculcate, you know, to develop a sense of. He said that Athens really just has not worked particularly hard to inculcate a sense of history and preservation in our community the way that most Georgia and even southern cities do. And he explained that there are things that we don't do that if you go to any other southern historic city, you're going to see happen. And as an example, he brought up to me, and this was, like I said, almost 4 years ago, that we don't have wayfinding signage for our historic areas. It's just this big missed opportunity. I mean, next time you're in Savannah or Augusta or Columbus, even if you're up in Chattanooga or other places around the South, when you're in a historic district, you don't have to guess. And that problem and the fact that we aren't visibly celebrating that history around our district is something that this project could very efficiently and inexpensively fix. So that's what I want to talk to you all about today. Keith, do you mind clicking to the next slide? So the title of this next slide is Closing the Equity Gap. In developing this project and in getting to talk to Tim Griffith, you know, traffic engineer extraordinaire for the city, I found out that this has been attempted a few times, but where it tends to fall apart is a problem of privilege. So what happens is it's proposed, the idea then turns to the neighborhoods paying their own way. Then it quickly turns into, oh, these would only go up in the most affluent neighborhoods, and we wouldn't be celebrating areas like historic West Downtown, Reese Hancock, and other areas like that. And so it tends to lose steam. And so this has been tried a few times and just has never really stuck. What we see this doing is by assisting with wayfindage, as you can see on the slide here, we're going to equitably identify our historic districts for pedestrian and auto traffic. We're going to allow residents and guests to better appreciate and honor our very local history, to get a sense of us as a historic community. We're going to tell stories, architectural stories, historical stories. It allows us to promote events that are specific to Athens past. It also helps us draw a line about places like Rock Springs, which is a historic district that's underappreciated, other areas that are designated as historic, but that many people don't realize about the rich history in those areas. So when you see an area like Pottery Town go down around the downtown area, one of the things that causes this is underappreciation. And similarly, like if you look at the 100 Prince development on Prince Avenue, if you look at Atlanta and what the story is on what happens next with developments like that, areas like Pulaski Heights immediately go under threat. But Pulaski Heights right now hasn't had any incentive to self-designate. There's not even a SPIF. There's no, for them, as opposed to Boulevard, which is designated, they feel like, why should we go to this trouble? But what we see in historic communities around the state is when there is even something as simple as a sign on top of your street sign that indicates you're in a historic area, it gives incentive for us to A, designate these undesignated areas, and also to look at areas like East Athens and other areas in Athens that don't have that protection and spot for ourselves that work needs to be done there. Keith, can you jump to the next slide for me? So Athens currently has 17 historic districts. In general, we tend to pass a new one every 2 to 3 years. So we're anticipating that by the time this SPLOST is complete, we'll have 19 historic districts. We're currently looking at Cars Hill, Whitehall, and Newtown for potential new historic districts. And what this would do is it would guarantee celebration and representation across all the economic divides throughout all these historic districts. As I said, help us point to areas that are underdesignated or underappreciated. We hope that maybe in a second phase of this project, we might be able to join certain communities that have unique signage for every district. But that will be a long and lengthy process where we'd have to engage with neighborhood stakeholders, determine the proper design. What we felt is, honestly, the greatest expense here is initial installation and the fixtures to actually install it. The smallest part of this expense in many ways is the signs themselves. And so it would be possible to go back and do that in a second phase after appreciating what we have here. The brown and white you see here, that was developed with the participation of traffic engineering for ACC and one of their recommended vendors. There's a manual on uniform traffic control devices, MUTCD. And according to that, those signs are brown with white lettering. That's why you see that around the state of Georgia. So we would be aligned with that traffic standard. Keith, do you mind flicking to the next one? Included in your packet are a variety of ways we feel this meets the triple bottom line requirement. It assists with pedestrian and vehicular wayfinding. It ensures that each neighborhood is represented. It encourages neighborhood pride. It increases social well-being by clear demarcations of historic district. For those of you that are concerned with the economic development impact, it does help signify the historic areas of town for that reason. And it'll be installed on existing signposts, so it does not involve any additional construction resources. I want to just also mention an equity issue here, which is a lot of times in Athens, one of the unfortunate parts, because we lack this signage, is people are sold into historic districts without realizing they've bought into a historic district. They're not told by the realtor about any additional requirements or expectations of living in that district. And because there is no street sign on there, the homeowner doesn't realize until they go to make their first change. And so we want to make sure that across historic districts, expectations and awareness are clear. Next slide, please, Keith. So as you can see over my shoulder, although I believe it's mirrored for you, you can see that what we've looked at is what is a very standard sign format. We looked towards signs around the Southeast for cues. You can see here that brown and white is the standard. For our sign toppers, you'll see that X bar, that was viewed as the most secure, theft and weather resistant. Then you can see the sideways bracket, that would be used for areas like the Morton Theater and throughout downtown Athens where there aren't traditional street signs. We'd still be able to use the existing brackets to get those installed. And then Keith, if you'll go to our last slide. This indicates, you can see, for example, downtown, as opposed to traditional street signs. I grew up in Athens, I've been here my whole life. I guess I've never really thought about the fact that you don't have traditional street signs like the kind pictured. These are the kind that are in downtown. All right, Keith, as I wrap up, do you mind going back to the previous slide? So just to set your mind at ease and about this project, and this is included in Project 31 in the paperwork. So we knew how competitive this TSPLOST is. We know how many difficult choices, as Lauren said, you will have to make. Having navigated the SPLOST process for Beach Haven and the ADA compliance issues at the Welcome Center, we know the kind of tough discussions you're going to have. Fortunately, we were able to figure out a way to correct this issue and bring Athens in line with the best practices of other cities around the South at a cost of less than $100,000. So that includes all additional SPLOST fees, total costs, estimated costs, including overages. So we actually believe it'll come in lower than this, is $95,000. I can go over that to you in more detail during your Q&A, but the short version is that the construction contingency includes the signs and any extra overages and brackets for $50K. Then there's a necessary project management and contingency required fees. We have the cost for the signs themselves at $36K, and then project management. I want to conclude by saying that we would be using TAPCO, which is the vendor that Athens-Clarke County tends to use for signage. They worked with us to develop this quote. They were actually a little surprised that we didn't already have this. When I was talking to them, they're actually not based, they're based in Wisconsin, but everyone, wherever you go, always knows Athens. And so when they said Athens doesn't have this, it was another reminder that this seems like a no-brainer. I will say that all of us here are concerned with greater access to trails, more equitable infrastructure. I have spent years of my life in Athens at times not owning a car and driving my bike around. We want safety and expanded bus routes and a lot of the other things you're considering. But if we don't do this through this, there's no other way it'll happen unless the neighborhood's supplied, in which case it is going to lack that equity component that I know is so important to all of us. So we hope that you'll support Project 31 and help signify the history of Athens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for that presentation. Questions for Tommy? We'll start with Daryl.
It's always be going first, huh? Well, I kind of have a problem with this historical, because to me, we still representing downtown Athens as much as possible, but you have a lot of historical areas in Athens that Pitt Road, for instance, is a historical area. It's not on that line, okay? Where they took the bodies and stuff from the cemeteries, the indigenous people from the cemeteries, that's no longer there. The stockade is no longer there. See, they done messed up history so much in Athens, and all they want to do is cram this one thing of history in this one area. Athens as a whole is a historical city. And I don't think the rest of the city gets enough knowledge of. Don't we worry about downtown UGA. But Athens has a lot of more history to it than just downtown and UGA.
Right.
I think that it's not spread it out like it should. That's just me personally. I mean, spending $95,000 downtown is just like beautifying downtown, but you're not really putting the history where it should be. If you're gonna put it, why wasn't it assigned for Pitt Road?
Right. Yeah, so Tommy, can you speak to any parts of this project that are not downtown? And,
so Daryl, first of all, I think you and I agree on more than just the best facial hair to hair configuration. I'm tracking with you, and I must have been inarticulate here. This is not just a downtown thing. There are 17 historic districts around the city, including the Reese Hancock area, historic Rock Springs, and others that will be signified through this. Downtown is one part of it that just the signs will be a little different. That's why I was spending some extra slides time on there. But this is not, look, let me tell you this. When I took this job, it took 2 months of job interviews to take this position. And that forced me to articulate my vision for what I thought this organization should do. And there's a reason why we spent 90% of our time this last year fighting for the preservation of West Broad. You're right. Athens cannot just be the story of downtown, because downtown was walled off from all but a very small percentage of people. And so one other thing though I'll say, and this is going back to my introductory remarks, there's a Southern saying, I know a lot of y'all know it, like throw your punch and hide in your hand. And I think that a lot of times in the South, we tend to hide what we're doing. And one of the reasons why we've invested money in looking at protecting areas like Newtown, and why we're talking about protecting East Athens and others, is until this presentation, probably a lot of y'all haven't even particularly thought on which areas are even designated or not. And so I think as these signs go up, Daryl, to your point, Pittard Road. Gosh, I mean, everything from where I'm sitting all the way out to Billups Grove Baptist. I mean, there's so many areas, the original J.J. Harris School. There's so many places that are on our annual Place in Peril list that we're working with community partners like First AME and Hill Baptist and others to try to fix. But, you know, it's one of these things where unless if we have the public signage to show which areas are protected, most people don't realize which areas aren't. And that's why this project is proposed, because I'll close my response here by saying, Daryl, without this project, if it goes the way it was going to go, the way it's been proposed before, there won't even be signs in every historic district. There'll just be signs in the richest historic districts. Like it'll be downtown, no offense to Cobham, I love Cobham, but it'll be downtown Cobham Boulevard and they'll call it a day. And there's much more history in Athens than that. So I hope that answers your question.
That's what I was saying. Because see, if you look at Pardo's gone.
Right.
Pardo district is gone. That's historical district of Athens. I mean, you're talking about, I think Pardo might have been in the maybe 1920, 1930 before they even started putting projects there. They had houses there. Now they got something else there. So those are historic districts that's probably going to be outside of the 17 districts that you have.
Well, which is why, and I neglected to mention this, and thank you. The budget allows surplus not only for weather and theft damage, but at Tim's suggestion, from Tim Griffith's suggestion, we included an adequate quantity of signs to post in our next two districts. And since our next two districts are likely to concern the kind of marginalized history you're talking about, we'll be talking about 19 historic districts with signs.
All right, Teresa has her hand up.
Yeah.
Teresa.
Thank you, Daryl.
Hi, Tommy. Okay, so I'm looking at the invoice from your vendor and the price tag is $33,397.
That's right.
And so I'm wondering a couple things. One is whether there would be any way to do a fundraising campaign to buy that. And if you were successful in doing that, would there be any reason why you couldn't like employ some volunteers to go out and put the signs up?
So here's what I want to say to that, Teresa. And I know that you are passionate about historic preservation. And you and I usually agree on everything. I don't think that's the way to go here. And I want to explain why. For one, a lot of the type of history that Daryl is describing, that's what we're going to our donors for right now. We're trying to preserve the African-American history that represents 4 out of 10 people walking around in the city that have not seen their history preserved. And I think that those projects are going to be top in terms of fundraising. But the other thing is, you know, when we put up a stop sign or a yield sign or a railroad crossing sign, no one ever talks about the community fundraising for those. Like that's wayfinding signage. And I think that, you know, when I looked this up in Chattanooga and Savannah and Augusta and Columbus, I didn't see community comes together to raise funds for historic signs. The city understood it had a value, that it was a value add that was part of their identity. And I think that just speaking as someone who was raised here and loves Athens, I don't think we love our historic stuff any less than those communities. And so I think if that's true, then we should put what is a limited amount of money forward. I mean, the truth is, I initially thought I was going to propose a $45,000 project to y'all. I just didn't realize how many contingency fees and percentages are and everything else like that. But, you know, we were able to keep it, I think, very low. But I can't imagine turning to Athens. Also, we'd run into the same problem. People would dump money in towards like Cobham and stuff like that, getting the kind of signage we need for areas like Rock Springs. I feel like we'd come up short. So that's why we're coming to y'all, because it's not the sexiest issue, but it is a transportation issue. And that's why I think it's appropriate for this fund.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for the question.
More questions for Tommy about historic districts street signage?
Good presentation, Tommy.
Thanks, y'all. Barring any future questions, I just want to say that I want to note that we didn't submit an alternative of this project just because we had already whittled it down as much as we possibly could, down to just the expenses plus contingency and installation. Tim thinks we might save some money during the installation process when we put out contract bids. But if anything, it's going to be cheaper. Y'all, this is urgent stuff. I mean, the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, it's one of ours. It has all of like everyone's favorite historic sites around Athens. And every time I put it on, I'm bummed out that we lost 2 of them this year. The varsity's gone and the trestle that's on here, we lost because of one meeting. It was all but fixed. And then one meeting and construction person came in, said it couldn't be saved. And so if we're not pretty serious quick with as much developments coming about celebrating history out here, it's going to get wiped out. And so I appreciate y'all taking it seriously and considering what we had to say.
Frank.
I just want to tell Tommy, Rock Spring is near and dear to my heart. My wife was born in a little house on Rock Springs. It's no longer there, but she every time she goes down there, there's a memory there. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Melissa Jest, who is the African American Programs Coordinator for the State Historic Preservation Division, she came to town shortly after I got hired with a list of historic places she wanted to see. And it was such an interesting way to view Athens, because we all have our places we're used to and we're not used to. First place she wanted to visit was Rock Springs. And the second place she wanted to visit, and I told you this once, maybe not. The second place she wanted to visit was the Brightwell Shotgun Homes, which is right on Barber. All those shotgun homes, they're on the National Register, but we don't really talk about them that way.
That's right.
And so, so Rock Springs is a treasure, and it's reason enough to do this.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Additional discussion from the committee? All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tommy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Take care, Tom.
Okay. Next up on the list, let me make sure I didn't skip. I did not. Project number 15, Community Gateways and Transportation Enhancements. Is Andrew in the house? Andrew Saunders.
Andrew is not going to take this one. I'm going to go ahead and take this one. This is Gavin Hasmer. I'm the Assistant Director for Central Services. And so,
Gavin.
hello, and thank you all for having us. I'm joined this evening by Jeannie Cannell, our Landscape Management Administrator as well, who'll do the presentation in a minute. But in carrying forward sort of what Andrew echoed last week with separate presentations, the Central Services Department is proposing some projects that obviously maybe fall a bit to the wayside in terms of their appearance and maybe their popularity, but we feel strongly that they are necessary, and that's sort of our role in the government. So with that, the Landscape Management Division is perhaps our most visible division. Not only do they maintain the buildings and grounds for all government properties and facilities, but also our parks. And in addition to that, all of our right-of-ways. And one stat I want you to kind of keep in mind is from the 2018 comprehensive plan, over 40,000 workers commute into this county every day from the outside. And so think of all the various roads and entryways into this county from the neighboring jurisdictions and what those look like. As you go through our presentation tonight, I'd like you to keep in mind that if you leave and exit or enter this county throughout the week, what is the roadway that you take and how is the appearance of that roadway as you enter or leave? And that's sort of the real background into this project that we're proposing. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jeannie.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. I'm going to try to share this, Keith. If I need your help, I will holler at you, okay?
Okay.
Did it come up as small on my side?
Yeah, if you go to slideshow mode, it'll probably show a lot larger.
Do what, hon?
Show as view as slideshow.
I'm gonna let you drive. So I'll hold this up longer than we need to.
All right, I did not have yours open. Give me just a second. All right, just say next when you need the next slide.
So as we see, we're going to be talking about gateways in transportation. So our project that we're going to be talking about, the goal is to provide visual enhancements at gateways throughout Athens-Clarke County and along highway corridors. The project will include gateway welcoming features such as monuments, pedestrian light poles, landscape plantings, art, etc. Also included are major entrances and roadways, including landscape medians, sidewalks, and interchanges. The goal of this project is to welcome visitors, inviting them while establishing an appearance that will set Athens-Clarke County with a brand and set it apart from other surrounding counties. Corridor enhancements will provide a cohesive feeling within the county and promoting key elements of character, identifying neighborhoods, and highlighting cultural interests. Okay, next. The first one I was speaking about, the placemaking features, will include banners, signage, light poles. These will all be inanimate features. Next. Okay, the other type of enhancements are obviously landscape enhancements. Landscape enhancements can be repetitive plantings, clusters of trees, large plantings that identify not only that you're entering to the county areas, but also specific neighborhoods, again, highlighting entrances to Firefly Trail, different parks, different districts, just somewhat bringing a cohesive feeling, but yet identifying the different parts of the county and highlighting. Next. The comprehensive plan support based upon users and needs of the community. Some may need more focal or enhancement depending on the transportation, again, the neighborhood, the land use, or economic development. Just depending upon the usage or the goal of highlighting a specific area will be dependent upon the plan and the support and how it's administered. Next. Our plan throughout the different selection criteria does support the mayor and commission's strategic plans and goals. Next. Economic prosperity, positive, putting in the enhancements, gateway, regardless of landscape or signage, will be more inviting in the entrance to the county to help motivate visitors to shop, visit various events, concerts, different events throughout the county. Negatively, it will have a tax-based budget impact, but yet affecting and bringing more funds into the county. Social well-being, the enhancement will create a sense of identity and ownership to citizens and be more secure to visitors, knowing that, one, they've reached their destination, there's good lighting, the signage is clear, and environmentally, by adding more plantings, excuse me, I got too many pieces of paper in front of me. By adding more plantings, not only will it increase the, sorry, protecting the community's existing transportation infrastructure, and installation of street trees will increase aesthetics while contributing to air quality. Next. The costs within our budget, we do have for the construction, there's several aspects of it, but the construction, well, it would include signage, any of the plantings. We have put together several different options. While there's not one set design for everything, there could be a group of signs put in, street trees or pedestrian lighting. We have put together a couple of different unit samples coming up with the total for the construction. There might be 5 or 6 clusters of 10 trees together. There could be a couple thousand square feet of plantings. So there's so many different ways that this plan could go. Next. Okay. And then the final ones, just bringing the cohesiveness of the county together, again, through the use of trees, plantings, signage, lights, and just encouraging the growth and development within our county. That was the last one.
So I think it's important to remember with this proposal that essentially what we're saying is there's no set area or entryway that we've pre-designated for this money. Essentially, we've come up with a list of variable options for installation, whether that's banners, signs, landscaping, different things that we could do around town in different areas. It doesn't have to be at the county line. It can also be into certain sections or areas of the county that we want to highlight. It could be neighborhoods. So this proposal, can do a lot with what we consider a little bit in terms of the grand scheme of landscaping costs and budgets. And it's something that can be distributed evenly throughout the community. So thank you all.
Thank you, Gavin, and thank you, Jeannie. Jeff, would you like to start us off?
Yes. Hey, Gavin, good to see you again.
Good to see you, sir.
I think you just touched on what my question was going to be about. And well, this is one of the, I won't say least ambitious, because it makes a huge difference. I remember years ago on the Macon Highway, we got a little bit of beautification back when Macon Highway was away into town, and it really made a difference. So with a little bit of money, it makes, you spread it around, but it also seems that this might be one of the more scalable projects. And I'm not suggesting it's scaled down. It should be scaled down, but as you know, everything's tight. Is there a way, would you agree that this is kind of scalable in that light?
I mean, certainly, I think, depending on how the committee sees this, we could certainly narrow the scope a bit to whether we identified certain areas or if we wanted to say a certain number. If we wanted to say during the course of this 5-year period, we're going to highlight 5 different entryways into the county, we would be able to get more specific with our budget if the scale was more defined.
Okay, yeah, remember it's the mayor and commission that's going to gut it, not us. We're all for it.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Blame it on the mayor and commission. Katrina, let's go with you. We haven't heard from you yet tonight.
I don't know if I'm the only one concerned about, and I felt this about the other signage project. Is anyone concerned that this is going to make Athens too appealing? That it's going to be, I don't want to call it a gentrification magnet or it's going to attract a certain types of attention. Like it's going to look beautiful and lovely, and then people will want to buy in, and it might have some negative consequences. Like it could look beautiful and lovely, but it might draw yeah, for lack of a better word, gentrification or just bring in a crowd. I'm really concerned about this staying subtle, like doing the job, but being subtle enough not to be too appealing.
So this is Andrew Saunders, and while I don't have video on, I think I'd like to add to that a little bit. Ms. Huff, certainly we understand those concerns. I would give 2 points. The first is poorly planned investment, whether it be sidewalks or beautification or multi-use trails or transit service, all can contribute to gentrification in the absence of good land planning and affordable housing strategy and other mechanisms. So I wouldn't single out landscaping and gateways and neighborhood improvements solely as that magnet. Secondly, I also think we need to I would not say that gentrification is aligned with beauty, right? Because then that leads us to the discussion of our lower income neighborhoods less beautiful. And I've been in many of those neighborhoods, having the privilege to walk every street, and they all have their own character. So I think really it just requires some thoughtful investment.
Thank you for chiming in, Andrew. Frank, I'm going to move you to the top of the stack. Go right ahead.
We're talking about some of the corridors in Athens. We've got to do something. We've got a major problem in Athens. It's trash, trash, trash and uncut right of ways. And I'd hate to think that we'd be sticking signs down in bushes. It's a major problem, and I've talked to the commission about it, and I think it's been a staffing problem or something during the pandemic. I don't know, but I come down Tallahassee Road is the main corridor that we travel, and it is just pure trash. That's one of the major arteries that comes into Athens. I don't know how you're going to make that attractive until there's some cleanup first. That's my point. I'm all for beautification and at our gateways, but we got a major trash problem in that. And then I come down Vaughn Road, the road that where my subdivision is, and if I could close my eyes while I'm driving, I would. But it's a mess, and that right of way hadn't been cut. I would imagine in 7 or 8 months, and it's a mess. So we're talking about these gateways and major corridors, beautification. We got to do some cleaning up first. I spill.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Platt. And right after this one, actually, number 16, I think the next project will certainly speak to that as well as we talk about equitable landscape and maintenance across the county. I do agree. I think they certainly go hand in hand that, we want to make sure that we have inviting entrances, but that we're highlighting those entrances not just at the county line, but throughout the duration of someone's drive. And so I think what we'd like to do is sort of like it is tonight, is we'd like to couple the two together. You'll hear from us in a moment about the overall routine and cycles of maintenance that our division is tasked with, and the challenge that poses currently throughout the county. But while we're on the topic of gateways, I do think that it is still certainly important to highlight our gateways, especially from an economic development standpoint and from a public appearance standpoint, to take pride in our community. And when we all think about certain ways and entrances and pathways into the county, for example, I can say Prince Avenue, and everybody knows what Prince Avenue looks like in their head. They envision the street trees, they envision, well-maintained areas. It's got a certain look and feel and highlight to it. And that's something we certainly want to bring to the rest of the community, because as Andrew pointed out, there are those other neighborhoods and those other corridors that are just as important as Prince Avenue. And we need to do our part to try and bring that focus to them as well. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments, Frank. Rocky, we haven't heard from you tonight. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I like the idea of this. Especially I live over near the Epps Bridge, Coney County, Clark County line, and I think it would be great to delineate where Clark County starts versus and where Oconee County ends. So I really like that idea, at least for that. Especially a lot of people coming from Atlanta on game days and stuff, they know when they've hit Athens.
And for what it's worth, placemaking like this also helps to slow down traffic and give people a visual signal that they are now in town.
With that, then I would say that I support it even more because people come ripping off 316 into Athens on that road.
Daryl?
Yes, I have a two-part question. My first part is, how would this be maintained? How much was the cost for it to be maintained? And my second question is that I'm like Frank, I've just got my grass cut for the first time on Lawton Road for the first time this year. And as soon as they cut the grass, somebody threw a sofa set out there. Trash everywhere. Everywhere. But we want to beautify some areas, and some areas ain't getting cleaned up. And I'm like, if you may want to propose for us to beautify area, and the other areas ain't getting the grass cut but once a year. That was my serious question. How is you going to pay for it? To maintain it, and you got other areas that need maintaining. So that means he's going to take up more time for the maintaining that area, and the areas that need to be maintained, I guess they're going to be another year waiting to get their grass cut.
So to answer that question, as far as the total project cost, you've got that in front of you, and that's really the project cost in terms of capital improvement. We've also identified the annual operating cost, $142,000 per year, and that's essentially to create 2 new positions that would focus solely on the gateway entrances, the maintenance that comes with those in new installations, annual plantings, things like that. So that is in the packet and included in the project scope. So again, we will be touching upon in about 2 minutes, I think, the maintenance side of maintaining roadways here in the county, and the costs associated with that, and what we're hoping to improve upon. One thing I do want to maybe just highlight a little bit is we certainly recognize that there is a need to continue to improve upon maintenance of our roadways. I do just want to point out, though, that the staff is not the one responsible for the litter. We try our best to clean up what others are throwing out the window, unfortunately, and as much as we'd love to control that, we can't. We can't control what people throw out their windows, but we do our best to try and keep up with what they do. And it's a battle, but we will certainly touch upon that in a minute.
I'm saying it can be maintained though.
And
that's big stuff.
If I might just briefly add, kind of following up on what Gavin and Jeannie have said, Mr. McManus, you're correct. It is not a preferred or really reasonable condition that certain areas of this community receive mowing service on a 3 to 4 month cycle. And so we have a proposal for that you're about to hear, and hopefully it'll be well received so that we can have everybody on a uniform cycle. I recognize that y'all have to cut about 80% of submitted projects, but I don't think it necessarily has to be either or. I believe this community has the capacity to maintain its landscapes and to provide for enhancement strategically.
All right, we have just another, I think, 2 minutes. So Teresa and then Madeline, and then we'll move on. Teresa?
Hi, thank you so much. Okay, so I really love this project because I feel like Athens really looks pretty down at the heels from just about any point at which you enter it. So I like this project. Most of my questions have already been answered, so I'm not going to repeat them. But can I just say that I love the medians on Epps Bridge Parkway. They make me smile every time I go past them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa. Madeline?
Well, I love the projects too, so I compliment all of you on the presentation. I'm finding myself intrigued by Patrina's comment, and that is the crowd it may attract. That's a very interesting comment, and not that Patrina and I need to have a conversation on your time, and this is really a philosophical comment that I would just add to the global, thought process. When I turned 40, my husband gave me China, as in 3 weeks of it. And it was stunning. And we got to a town called Hangzhou. And apparently Marco Polo viewed that as his favorite city in all of his travels. And the reason was all the entrances were tree lined. And so I would just ask us to look at that being very much a part of what we stand for when all roads, head into downtown Rome. So thank you. Thank you all for your presentation.
Thank you, Madeline. All right. Moving on to our next project, which I think will clear up a lot for the committee. Project number 16, Equitable Landscape Service Project. And who's presenting this one?
So again, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeannie in a second, but as a segue into this, sort of in our project program description and based on the conversation that we've already sort of started tonight, Athens-Clarke County, we have different mowing cycles. We do our best with the staff that we have and the budget that we're given. And given the fact that we maintain hundreds of miles of right-of-way, certainly there is room for improvement, and that is why we recognize that and have proposed this project to you all this evening. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jeannie, who is more familiar than a lot of folks with our mowing cycles.
Thank you, Gavin. I'm going to apologize. I did turn my camera off because I'll get talking here and my arms are going to be flying as I get excited about talking about this. Just want to give you a little bit more information on the current levels of service that our right-of-way division within landscape management does provide. The right-of-way division is made up of an urban, GDOT, parkway and gateway, and the rural routes. The urban, GDOT, parkway, and gateway are set up to perform on a 4 to 5 week cycle rotation. They predominantly service what is known as Zone 12. If you have time, and I encourage everyone to visit the ACC website and take a look at the Central Services Landscape Division page. We do have a map that breaks the county area into 12 zones. We also provide a schedule that we aim to shoot for completion and completing these routes within these zones. So going back again for Zone 12 that is serviced by those 3 particular routes, Zone 12 is the areas east of Timothy and Mitchell Bridge and surrounded by the loop. Now, some of those arteries are serviced by these same crews that extend outside the loop. For example, Lexington Road, Jefferson Road, Danielsville, some of those main arteries, they are serviced and set up to be set on a 4 to 5 week rotation. Staff that service those areas are 11 full-time and 12 trustees. The remainder of the county encompasses 11 zones. Those 11 zones are serviced by 4 full-time employees and 2 trustees. These routes are set up to be serviced with an 11 to 12 week cycle. These routes encompass approximately 700 miles of roadway. Most of the roadways have 2 sides of road. So if you calculate that, 1,400 miles. Some of the rights of way extend 30 to 50 feet. So by the time they make 1 or 2 passes with the tractors, they are servicing almost 4,200 miles in an 11 to 12 week period. Now that 11 to 12 week period and 4 to 5 week period is set up in a perfect world with minimal impact services, scheduled interruptions, storm damage cleanup. Most recently in June, storm damage set us back 2 weeks of service due to cleanup. The storm impacted Tallahassee, Huntington, and Cleveland road areas. During that time, there were no cutting or services of right-of-ways. Removal of dump sites. Typically 2 crews are required to clean up a dump site, but more extreme cases require the entire right-of-way staff. Hazardous tree limbs and trees themselves removals. Inclement weather. Rainy days like today and forecasted for the next few days will halt mowing. We have other tasks to tend to, but mowing will be ceased. Okay, next one, please. This project, we are seeking 2 additional teams. One is to provide services for the rural route and an arbor care team. Both will include staffing and equipment. Next slide. The project descriptions. The additional rural route crew will allow staff to focus on maintenance services of mowing, weed control, weed eating, and trash cycles balanced to create a 4 to 5 week coverage for the entire county, just as Zone 12, which is, again, the urban GDOT and gateways crews. Adding that secondary crew will allow the entire county to be serviced on a 4 to 5 week cycle. The addition of the arbor care team will focus on hazardous tree and limb removals, as well as preventative care to avoid and reduce the reactive calls. Example, this past winter, we serviced Timothy Road and Macon Highway areas by removing hazardous trees, doing hard cutbacks, removing limbs, doing corrective pruning. To this date, we've had 0 hazard calls or trees blocking the roadways since this past winter on that specific area. The arbor care team will also provide preventative pruning and maintenance, reducing the impact of sightline disturbances, including the enhancement, health, and vigor of our community trees. Next slide. Okay, promoting equability. These 2 pictures, the one on the left is of Danielsville Road. While I will admit Danielsville Road does not always look like this, this would be probably a 2 to 3 week after service. Again, this route is impacted when we have storm damage, trash removal, etc., but it is maintained on a 4 to 5 week, whereas the slide on the right is at Belmont Road. This was at a 13-week interval service. So you can see obviously the difference, and I'm sure most of you already are aware of that. I do travel Tallahassee Road myself, and I know what it looks like. Next slide. Adding the arbor care team will help protect our roadways and infrastructure. The machine on the left provides cutting back of vegetation while it's no grass is to be cut along the sidelines, trees, shrubs, etc., growing out into the roadways, creating sightline. 2 trees in the middle, obvious trees have fallen across, blocking roadways. These trees falling also damage the roadways. The picture on the right is corrective, preventative, and maintenance pruning along the trees. Next. Again, we've listed here, we are meeting and answering all strategic plans and goals of the Mayor Commission. Next one. Economic prosperity. Aesthetically pleasing roadways are welcoming, inviting businesses and consumers to visit our county and towns. The negative points, there are none, other than overgrown streets, roads, trees falling are unwelcoming and unsafe, basically saying stay out. Social well-being, elimination of disparity between urban and rural services. We totally believe and support one county, one appearance. Next slide. Environmentally, we encourage healthy growth and community forest through corrective and preventative action. Strong root systems are supporting for erosion control and stormwater filtration. Stronger canopies, reducing energy needs through shade in the summer and radiant heat, allowing through the winter. Negatively to start, we will see an increase of fuels and gas usage through the use of more vehicles and equipment, but we are researching for more use of electrical vehicles and equipment to be used throughout. Next. Budget. Our major impact will be the acquisition of the equipment for startup with additional tractors, additional trucks, chippers, bucket trucks. The other high figure does included with operational costs. This is a 5-year operation cost. Write that down on one of the. Oh, there it is. Staff payroll per year would be $377,000. Over 5 years, 1.8 million. Then the other portion of those monies would be for fuel, fleet, and supplies at $182,000 per year. It is noted on there for annual operating costs as a credit of $147,000. We have asked and will be asking within the next budgetary round that we start saving to build into the acquisition of capital equipment. Okay. Additional positive outcomes would be reduction in response time and reduce potential hazards from the trees and overgrowth of vegetation, defining Athens-Clarke County with a consistent appearance stating that we do care, and also a cost savings of in-house versus contractual labor. Basic tree care of removal of a 12-inch caliper tree. If we did that in-house, approximately $100 versus contracted labor, almost $600. Is that half?
So again, I think, and thank you, Jeannie. The goal here is to point out that we do as a staff recognize that there is a difference around the county in when services are applied. And that is unfortunately the reality that Jeannie and her staff are left with, given the current budget and the current staffing levels that we have. And so recognizing that, but wanting to make a difference going forward is why you see this proposal in front of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Alan, kick us off.
Yeah, I think that this absolutely needs to be a priority for some budget. I hate that you guys have to bring it forward as a special project, but it needs to get paid for out of something. And Mayor and Commission, if you're watching, this should be a budgetary line item, not a special project. But I live off Timothy Road, and it looks like crap more than it looks like a neighborhood road. The grass is always pretty high, and except the week after they mow it. We have teams that go out there on a regular basis and pick up trash. We've had residents that have gone to the people that live on Timothy Road and said, hey, can you mow the right of way for us? Because the city's not doing it. And it's kind of a steep bank on there. It's not the most comfortable thing if you've got a personal mower, but that's what we've had to do because this just isn't getting done. And I'm sorry that you guys have to use TSPLOST for things like this and pavement maintenance and stormwater and bridges. I wish there were other ways to pay for it, but thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Jennifer?
Thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering if you purchased this equipment and you had the ability to pay for this extra staff. Would you use any external contractors for anything related to landscape maintenance or repair? Would you still need to contract with other folks?
Just to be clear on that question, so if we were to get what we were asking for, essentially, including both the capital equipment and the operating costs, if there would be a need to still contract out besides that, I'll let Jeannie go ahead and answer that. If there may still be some small items that we contract out, but I don't think anywhere near where we're currently at.
That's correct. We will be able to do more in-house with the arbor care. This kind of goes into another topic. We recently just completed our iTree Echo study. It's been amazing. Y'all will hear more about this later. But basically, as a county, we spend 8 cents per tree, which equates, and it comes out to 100 trees per citizen of the county. That is nothing. There's very hard to do anything with that. Whereas if we had a team on staff, we could handle more and get more completed in caring for the trees, hazards, etc. As far as mowing, we would not have to contract anything out. We don't contract anything out now. We would be able to increase our services.
Thank you. That was helpful.
I'm going to move Travis to the top of the list. Haven't heard from him tonight. Go right ahead, Travis.
By not having to contract anything out, does that mean all of these workers would be paid workers? Would this involve prison or jail labor? Is this all staff? What is this?
So the workers that are proposed in the project description, I think there's 2 crew leaders and then 2 groups of 3 workers. Those would be your full-time staff members that we would hire as part of this proposal. Now, yes, with our crews, we currently use inmate labor for a number of our crews. And so it would be likely that would also be the case even with these new hires, that they would probably be paired, if needed, with additional inmate labor. Is that sort of the question that you're asking?
Well, that's information to have, so that's fine. It's not non-responsive. Would you all be willing to reject prison labor moving forward? That's the only way I would vote for any project, really.
So, I mean, I think I could take that question I may have to separate it a bit. As far as, as a division, the use of inmates would probably have to be a bigger discussion for our mayor and commission. As far as this project proposal, if we were to increase the staffing beyond which is already proposed in the project, then yeah, I think we could certainly work for these specific crews for this project. We could increase the number in terms of operating costs and then, eliminate the need for extra labor.
Okay, and so that's interesting to know. So so these labor costs consider the idea that you all would still be moving forward with the prison labor, but that is something that could be adjusted. It's not integral to how you view landscape management, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that, again, we could increase the operational costs for this particular proposal and remove the need for inmates potentially. I cannot make that call necessarily for our entire division moving forward without inmates. That's more of a political discussion that would have to be at the mayor and commission level. So hopefully that clarifies the question for you.
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Travis. Really appreciate that. Madeline, do you still have your hand up?
I do not. I'm sorry. Let me remove that. Thank you.
Daryl, go right ahead.
Oh, see, I said it looked like you're getting tired of hearing my voice.
Daryl, you know you and I are on the same page.
Never, never.
I have some questions because simple fact. First question, how much do they pay inmates to work? That's number one. Two, how many people are you going to hire in this to work this program right here? If we were to give you $3,811,000, how many inmates would be hired if they decide that they're getting out of jail now and they need a job? Or is there any way y'all, is the city in any type of plan to give these inmates who are doing voluntary kind of work to get some kind of recommendation to where they can be able to get a job?
Is it all right if I take that one, Gavin?
Okay.
So you're spot on, Daryl, and you're aligned with many of the activities that we're working on. To answer your first question, I'm not aware of any monetary compensation that inmates receive for working. Now, it is a program that they volunteer.
Right there.
I understand.
Free labor for inmates. The city is using free labor to inmates. They're not getting paid for doing work, and then they turn around and taking the money that they're using that they don't have to pay the inmates with. Where's that money going at that could be using for some of this equipment that we now need? Because you've been getting free labor for years.
Yes, sir. Well, I can't speak to the decisions the commission is making, but I can speak to
that's
the
not a commissioner. That's not
Right.
a commissioner. That's not a commissioner situation, Andrew. This is a life situation.
I 100% agree. So let me follow through on my answer.
I'm not getting on their case about this. What I'm saying is we spending money that would affect our entire city. But you going to sit there and tell me that you're using inmates for no pay?
You have not allowed me to finish my answer.
Go right ahead. And for what it's worth, this is definitely a mayor and commission type decision. And I think what unpaid inmate labor has allowed to do is really just kick the can down the road as far as hiring people, paying them living wages. Yeah. So go ahead, Andrew. You said you wanted to follow up.
So we will bring you a proposal that 100% excludes any additional inmate labor to achieve these services, because that's what we're hearing from you today. And I think you'll find it not substantially different from our current budget. To speak a little bit towards how Central Services uses inmates and the opportunities for them to transition out, we have partnered with some of the tech colleges in Georgia so that the inmates that work for us are receiving actual training, and upon completion of a certain level of service receive certificates from community colleges documenting their experience. There have been limited instances where we have been able to hire former inmates into work with Athens-Clarke County. Although I will tell you, there are bigger HR-related policies that need to fundamentally be reviewed before that can really be scaled. And we are also expanding.
Like felonies, sir? Like felonies?
Yes, sir. Some felonies would minimize your ability to work with Athens-Clarke County.
That's our problem right there. And you wonder why we got so many daggone things going on in the city worrying about shootings and everything, because you refuse to hire felons. When you refuse to hire felons, you can expect the situation that you're going to get in your city.
Well, I don't get to make that call. I will tell you
well, you can send it to the mayor and whoever else makes those calls and let them know that I said that.
We just hired an individual. I won't go into any details about them for their own confidentiality. We did just hire an individual that had a previous criminal record for manslaughter. We have found that individual to be exceptional in their work, but it does take a lot of effort to navigate through the HR system. And we are a small cog turning a big wheel, but we are trying to turn in the correct direction. So I would ask that you all, you've given us feedback about trustee labor that we will definitely take into account. Ultimately, I think y'all are going to need to judge this on its merits if we bring you a proposal without trustees to determine Is this a level of service that you all wish to see in your community funded through TSPLOST, or do you prefer that those communications stay within the regular budgeting discussion?
Okay, now to finish off my question, didn't you not say that y'all maintain that 4 or 5 time cycle? We can't get one.
The rural routes are on a target of a 12-week cycle.
Any additional comments or questions regarding the Equitable Landscape Service Project? Madeline? Oh, Madeline, you're muted.
The only thing that I can say is probably the oldest person in the room is, I am so proud of this conversation. I thank all of you. That's it.
Thank you, Madeline. All right. Well, thank you, Central Services, for being here tonight and presenting your 2 projects. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
As a committee, we're going to move on to our next project, and after this one, we will take a 5-minute break. So up next, we have Boulevard Area Bike Ped Improvements. This was submitted by Joseph Arndt. Joseph, are you here tonight?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. Well, hi, committee members. Thanks so much for serving here. My name is Joe Arndt. I live here at 243 Barrow Street, and I've been doing that for about the past 5.5 years, along with my wife, and now 2 young daughters. I love the little kind of neighborhood streets of Athens, and I hope we can kind of keep investing in these places, as I think it helps make Athens thrive. The genesis of this proposal came when I read a flagpole article describing the conundrum we were having on Barber Street. And I don't know if the presentation's available, but there was a slide that kind of, I think I copied and pasted the relevant parts. The path was originally going to be on Chase, but needed to be moved to Barber for logistical reasons. So now the path is going to start kind of at Chase, which is about 1.3 miles from Prince, and come all the way south. And the goal is to connect it with Prince. And in the article, the commissioners state the displeasure and kind of confusion that I think many of us are feeling, where we're going to have this great multi-use path, bike lanes, starting kind of way out. And as we get closer to the city, for the last 2 blocks, we have to put the cyclists back on a busy road. When I saw the article, I emailed the commissioners pointing out the happy coincidence that there's an underdeveloped park at the intersection of Barber and Boulevard, and suggested putting the multi-use path kind of through the park, start in the northwest corner and kind of come down and then turn right about 90 degrees and go along the back of the properties on Barber and connect with Barrow Street. And then walkers and cyclists it would be 50 feet to Child Street, which is a much more quiet kind of neighborhood street. And that way you could connect to Prince. And as we were adding a path through the park, it just made sense to add kind of another entry point to the park from Crawford, as that would only take probably 20 feet. Commissioner Link and Thornton were complimentary and encouraged me to fill out an application, and here we are. And as we thought about it, we thought, it might make a lot of sense to enhance this kind of new cyclist and pedestrian corridor along Child Streets by kind of dividing it into 2 with a median in the middle, to kind of cut through the through traffic. And this would, put more of the vehicle traffic on Barber, which is a thoroughfare, and then the cyclists and the cyclists and the walkers would have kind of a quiet cul-de-sac-like kind of experience to get to the park, and then to Barber Street and the multi-use path and beyond. There was also kind of this hold in that, Barber Street is only 2 blocks from the Pulaski Heights Trail, and there's no connection. And Pulaski Heights Trail is hopefully going to connect to the Greenway. I think that's a project in front of you guys, and I hope that gets the support, as that one makes a lot of sense too. And as so many people have walked next to the railroad tracks, kind of there, that we just thought it made a lot of sense for a multi-use path. That's the kind of the pink line up there. It would start at the bottom of Crawford and then kind of go all the way over to Pulaski, or connect with that green line, which is the Pulaski Heights Trail, with a connection there at Hendricks along the way. So basically, if you're in the park, you could have a new entrance on Crawford. Crawford's a very quiet street. There's probably only 4 driveways there. So walkers and cyclists would feel great on that. And then that would kind of connect it. Just kind of speaking more broadly, I guess the core thesis of this proposal is, I think there's fairly broad consensus to make Athens a more livable city with kind of real walking and bicycling options. And we've taken some, big steps in the right direction. But if you step back and look at the big picture, we've kind of created some islands and pockets of paths and parks, but not really a connected network. And so I think if we take a bit of our resources here and kind of be a little creative about it, we can, change the mindset from using the facilities as a destination or an activity unto themselves into using the facilities as part of our daily activities. So instead I'm going to Boulevard Woods Park and then returning to my house, I'll walk through the park on my way to, wherever I'm going. So this project, I think, fixes a couple big problems while also providing kind of great side effects as a much more dynamic park, better access to many residents. This is really a project for everyone, not just one group, as well as, physical, social, economic outcomes. I mentioned some of the feedback of the commissioners, but almost everyone I mentioned this to has been excited. A little late in the game yesterday, I started a petition and handed out some flyers, and we already have 10 signers supporting this, and hope to have more soon. And so with that, I'll kind of just open it up to questions. See what you guys think.
Thank you, Joe. Madeline, do you have your hand up?
I do not. Let me take it down. I'm sorry, but thank you for the presentation.
Yes, Joe, I have a question for clarification. So this project, if you don't mind actually bringing your presentation back up, this is just for the gold areas that you have outlined in your map?
So yeah, let me just do this. So there's kind of 3 phases to this project. The first one is the orange line, which is the multi-use path through the park. It connects to that dotted purple line, which is the planned bike path on Barber, and then it goes kind of into the park and would veer to the left a little bit to Crawford, which is the street to the north, and then if you go to the south, kind of runs behind the properties. And then connects to Barrow Street. And then, cyclists and walkers can go down Child, which is the dotted orange line. And so the second part is creating a median there in Child, which is those 2 green dots. So you basically would cut the through traffic there. And then the third part of the project is the pink line at the top there, which would, again, if you're leaving the park to the north, same idea, the dotted line, people can use the street that we have that's not very crowded because it's just a couple houses to connect with the path that's going to run parallel to the railroad tracks all the way over to the Pulaski Heights Trail, which is the green line. And you can see that the brown line coming off that green line is the planned Greenway expansion to get the Pulaski Heights Trail to the Greenway.
Gotcha. So this project itself includes funding for the orange aspects and then the pink.
Yes, that's right. And the 2 green dots.
And the 2 green dots. Okay. Thank you. Daryl, go right ahead.
Yes, how you doing?
Doing great.
I like the idea of the small medium on Charles Street. I think that's a great idea. My other question is asking about the topography of Boulevard. The woods is crazy. The crazy, Boulevard at the top, the steep, how high it is.
Yeah.
The wooded area. How are y'all gonna how would you go through it?
So what we did, I walked it with some of the county guys who were really helpful. You kind of are starting in the back, so it's kind of the southeast corner of it, and you're trying to create as much distance to the northwest as possible to limit that increase. And it's probably steeper than we would like, but I got the sense that it wasn't going to require kind of massive amounts of grading. Since we're going all the way across the park, it kind of minimizes the slope, if you will.
Thank you, Daryl.
You answered my question.
Additional questions for Joe? Comments? Yeah, Katrina, go right ahead.
Okay, what would you say was the most essential aspect of this project? I mean, you already mentioned like phases, or so if you had to choose, if you had to pare down or choose priorities, what would you choose to do first? Or
Yeah, I think that the core of it is really the orange line. As it kind of really opens up the park. Like right now, the park is just, there's one entrance on Boulevard, and with this project, we're going to get 2 more entrances. So people from kind of all over the park are going to have much easier access. And then, the cutting of the dividing of Childs and the pink line are kind of add-ons to that.
Thank you. And Katrina, thank you for that question. So Joe, I'm a cyclist and I do bike this area a whole lot. So one of the reasons why I come out at Barber Street is that there's a light there and I need to make a left turn on Prince Avenue. Does your project think about how a cyclist might get across here, or what they would
Across
do?
Prince?
Yeah, Child Street.
So it's interesting. I believe that the plan there on Prince that they're contemplating will have bicycle lanes on both sides. So to me, I think if the easy thing is you could kind of come down to Child's, turn right, and then you get to a light and you can kind of get through that intersection there. If assuming you're kind of making a left, and then obviously if you're making a right, it wouldn't be as bad. That makes sense?
No, can you, you're saying that you would take a right and then
you would come to the intersection of Barber and Prince, which has a light that you're used to, and you could kind of navigate through with like a pedestrian would. At a minimum, you can make a left with with an arrow or the crosswalks.
So a U-turn? Maybe I'm not understanding you.
Oh yeah. Yes. If you're trying to make a left out of Childs, then you would go down, half a block to the intersection to come back around.
Okay. Yeah. Or I guess another option could be to take Barrow Street to Pulaski to the light there. To Daryl's point, at that point, pretty much in a pit though. You have to climb out of that.
That's where I live. It is a bit of a valley.
Yeah.
But from Prince to the park, it's relatively flat.
Teresa?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm eating, so I'm going to not show my face right at this moment. But I'm looking at a map here, and I'm trying to figure out where you would run your trail to connect with Child Street. And, there are a lot of properties you'd have to go through. And
Well,
how would you achieve that?
So that was one of the benefits of this project was, when they kind of surveyed the community about what to do on Barber, and one of the things was to do like a big wide bike lane on Barber, and it's pretty expensive. But by kind of going to the back of the properties, you go from I think about like 5 properties down to 3 because there's less properties back there. So it's really just 3 properties. It's one property that's for sale right now on across the street from me on Barrow. I don't know how well you know it, but it's basically the lot next to the vacant lot that's Nelson's. And then you'd go behind two apartment complexes. And as all three of those properties are rentals, and I think there's, economic benefits to having close access to a path to a park, I think you could get a pretty good buy-in. But so it's fewer properties on that stretch, but you're also not doing anything from Barrow all the way down to Prince, because you're just using the child street. So you're impacting a far fewer than we were originally contemplating.
Okay. Thank you.
Daryl, did you have your hand back up?
Yes, I wanted to ask the question about the is it still too steep? I probably, if I'm looking at the steepness, do you know the grade percentage on that?
Oh, I do not. I know I
It's
don't
a
know if the county guys are on, but they
question for
calculated it. But it's
when you think you would want that?
well, we walked it, so
accurate.
I don't know the number, but
It's
I've kind of seen it, and I think it's very doable for a walker or a cyclist.
hey, Joe, it's Alex. I'm on here.
Good man.
So honestly, at this point, we walked it and we did some general ideas for all of our, all the presentations that reached out to us. But it's still so conceptual at this point. I can't put an exact figure on it. There would be some cutbacks in the park, but again, the park allows for a lot of left to right movement to try and accommodate something like this. Mr. McManus, was that a good enough for? Not, I mean, it's not an exact number, no, but
No, but that'd be a good thing, good idea for y'all to look into, of finding out the downgrade of that, because it could be important. Even with people coming down the roads and everything, it's really important that we don't have downgrades except for downtown. I think, or on Atlanta Highway, coming down there before the police might get you, or the part across from the Chevron and gas station. That's the only time you see a downgrade, but you very seldom see a downgrade in Athens. I think you might look into seeing that, because you got a lot of bikers might use that area.
duly noted. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at this on Google Maps 3D, and I can't quite capture the slant, but I'm looking for it. It's kind of fun. Additional questions for Joe, or comments, discussion on this project? All right, Madeline?
Interestingly, I have heard from several friends of mine as regards this project in a way that I've not heard from friends of mine historically. I guess my question to you is, have you reached out to the parties who are due to be maximally impacted by routing this through?
So the project is again like directly touching three properties, two apartment complexes and one house. And I've talked to the one homeowner. It's the Kinneys, which is a kind of a group of siblings who are in the process of selling it. They're a little amused in it, but I think they're more interested in selling it. I think maybe you're talking to maybe people who are close to it, and I've reached out to folks, but no one has expressed any concerns to me yet. But again, I was probably a little late in reaching out.
Right.
What was their concerns?
Are you speaking to me?
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, I guess the issue seems to be just the value of, the threat of eminent domain, or the value of the right of the individual to do with their property what they choose to. And I say that as a Greenway commissioner, for a number of years who, has always meant to default to respecting the rights of the private property owner. So I guess my question is, have you fully vetted the property owners regarding?
Yeah, I think there might be some confusion about whose property would be impacted, but I don't think there's anyone like an individual who would be impacted directly. As far as like a home value, I think the Beltway in Atlanta has proven that
Right.
proximity to these types of paths is nothing but a huge boon. I think it would be good for the value, but the real reason to do it is just that it's going to make the park a lot more dynamic and kind of connect different parts of the community together.
Right. And I have to concur with you at some level. As I spoke with these parties, I reminded them of the Beltway, but it's there's tension. So I just ask you to be sure that those issues are covered.
Sure.
Yeah, Madeline, if I could interject, I would suggest that you recommend to your friends that they comment on the project online, and everybody for or against projects. But that's really, we don't expect the people submitting projects to go gain approval from all of the neighbors for projects.
Right.
And yes, it's certainly good to get input where they can, but yeah, that's really beyond what most folks are capable of trying to undertake in the time frame they have to submit a project. So
Yes. And I thank you for that, Keith, and our presenter and our private property owners. Thank you.
sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks so much. And if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about it, please let me know.
Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
We didn't make you
much.
too nervous, did we?
Oh no. I'm a banker. I got to go to credit committee. This is
Nerves of steel.
We're nice. We're regular old residents of Athens-Clarke County. We're nice
On your side.
All right, committee. We are going to take a 5-minute break before we listen to our final projects. So I'm going to say let's come back here at 7:47. And please make sure your video is off if you don't want anyone to see. We are still recording, and maybe double check that you are muted.
Hey Keith, this is Mark Abel. Will I be able to drive my own presentation or do you guys have to do that? You're muted, sorry.
That's why I left my video on. We don't have to drive it. You can do it.
Okay, great. I'll just share my screen then. I'll just get things set up.
Yeah, there's just a lot of
Are we
folks that,
next? Is the Park Talmadge next?
let me check my list here. No, there is one other ahead of you, Beach Haven to Sycamore Drive Greenway.
Okay, cool, great.
And
I'll
it's the Park
do
Talmadge.
video.
Yeah. You're actually third, Mark.
Well, I'm with Clinton McCrory. We're doing the Park Talmadge together.
Okay. Yeah, that one's second, and then the Athens in Motion.
Yeah.
as
Okay,
you-
cool.
That's the third
Thanks,
one.
Keith. Appreciate it.
So Mark,
Yeah.
oh, so what did you want to do about the PowerPoint?
Well, the question is whether they advance it or we advance. I think you were planning to advance it. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
I think that'll still work. You just
Okay,
have to
great.
share your screen and then go.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you when I want to advance the slides.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, cool.
Reconvening the committee. TSPLOST committee, please return.
It sounded like you're trying to conjure them up from a.
No, that's what I was thinking. I'm summoning them.
Does sound like a conjuring.
Somebody's getting ready for Halloween early.
I almost wore my pumpkin earrings instead of the bike earrings. So next time. I see videos coming back.
I'm here, but nobody wants to watch me eat, so.
It's okay. I'm probably gonna eat in front of everybody. I give up.
If you sent dinner to everybody's house, then we'd all be eating together, right?
Right.
The way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, maybe we can have Ashley send us some frozen dinners every Wednesday. Only from HelloFresh.
No, you've got to agree to meet in person to get fed.
Oh, I know. I know. Has anyone seen our numbers this week? Are they better? Our COVID numbers?
The 2-week rolling average was about 560 something, which is about the same as it was last week.
Keith,
Yes.
we need your daughter's cookies.
Gotta
Period.
meet in person.
Period.
Now, see, Keith, I didn't bring it up. Madeline brought it up. See,
I remember.
I was trying to be patient. Good.
She doesn't do them anymore though. She's moved on to a real engineering job.
Oh, well, that's
Has she
great.
really? Tell all. Where is she?
She's a civil engineer in Madison, Georgia.
Oh, you braggart.
Nice.
You ask.
Sorry. What kind of civil engineering? Bridges?
Roads, storm, sewer, and water and sewer projects, and just general civil, site development.
Oh, like father, like daughter.
I tried to discourage her, but she
That's
wanted to do it
awesome.
anyway.
She got hooked early.
I want to come have dinner with you guys. All my friends are just like, okay, Lauren brought up transportation again on our camping trip. And I'm like, but look at the roads. They were just recently paved. Okay, so we need to move on to our projects. our presentations. And next up, we have number 74, Beach Haven to Sycamore Drive Greenway. I believe we have Sorba in the house. Seth, are you here? Seth? I heard him.
Can you
Oh,
hear me?
kind of quiet.
Here.
All right.
Can't hear
Can
me?
you're very quiet. If you can move any closer to your mic, that could help.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
You're still pretty quiet. Mic check. You can do a mic check.
Mic check. Hang on.
Well, y'all, we might just have to turn up Seth all the way.
For now?
Oh, yes.
Oh boy. Okay. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm Seth Younger. I am the president of Sorba Athens, and we mostly do natural surface trails open to bikes, but there's very few of those in Athens. So, and we like to ride our bikes. So to get to trails, we need bike-friendly transportation, just like everyone else. And so we were interested in a lot of greenway projects, and other people were presenting them. And this was one that wasn't being presented by others. So that everyone still hear me good?
Hear you well.
So the idea with this project is all about connecting neighborhoods around the future Beach Haven Park to Beach Haven Park.
Seth, interrupt. Are you going to do your presentation, or you need me to put it up?
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask. Which I can do it either way.
If you want to do it, that's fine.
Okay, I am going to share. Hopefully. Let's see. Are y'all's? How do I get to presentation mode? Are y'all seeing my slides?
We are. It's just a little small because it's in PDF mode.
Probably if you expand to full screen, or if you just share your content versus sharing screen.
Where? All right. Sorry, I don't use WebEx a lot.
Yeah, that's okay. So let's do what Keith said. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
And just share the one app.
All right, share. Yeah, it's still.
Can you expand the window with that little square in the top right? It's been a while since I've done. There we go.
There you go.
That's it.
There's a way to do presentation mode in PDF, but I forget anyway. Sorry.
That's okay.
Right. The idea here is connecting neighborhoods around Beach Haven to Beach Haven, and we put Sycamore Drives in there because that's kind of separate, but an important piece of this. All right, so Beach Haven Park was funded under SPLOST 2020. I copied a lot of these slides from Tommy Valentine's presentation from that from SPLOST 2020. And the idea here is that Beach Haven Park improvements were funded, but connectivity to the park wasn't necessarily funded. As far as I understand, the idea here is to fill funding gaps to provide connectivity from all these proximal neighborhoods around Beach Haven Park. And in addition, Sycamore Drive down here. So key features are human-powered transportation connectivity, bike and pedestrian, and connecting all these neighborhoods, including Sycamore Drive through to Broad Atlanta Highway. So Sycamore Drive is there are no sidewalks or any sort of pedestrian infrastructure, and so these are
Google Street View images from December 2020 with people pushing strollers and walking along the street there with no sidewalks. So this project would add sidewalks on one side, on the south side of Sycamore Drive, and multi-use trail on the north side. And so there are other pieces of connectivity that are not in this project but are in other proposals. So greenway connectivity to Ben Burton Park with the bridge across to Matthews Motors would provide like parking and other amenities in the future. And yeah, connectivity to Ben Burton Park and to other communities in the area. And so all this, you know, none of this is new. It was all proposed under the Greenway Network Plan. It's in the all this was in the 2020 update to the Greenway Network Plan. This project specifically closes the equity gap in specific ways by providing human-powered transportation in to future green space and Beach Haven Park, solving some transportation issues in the Sycamore Drive, Atlanta Highway, and Hawthorne Avenue corridors. And a lot of the population in this area, including Sycamore Drive, Gardenia Drive, off of other neighborhoods off of the Hawthorne corridor, are underserved. And so this project addresses some of the Mayor and Commission's approved strategic commitments, number 1, 2, and 3 there. One of the transportation, mobility, and connectivity one's number 3, enhance corridor aesthetics and connections between residential and community and countywide, residential and commercial countywide. So this project provides connectivity for multiple neighborhoods under Atlanta Highway, and then along with future bike lanes and sidewalks in the Atlanta Highway corridor would allow a lot of people to get to shopping in the Alps Road area that they can't currently get to very easily. And it falls under corridor redevelopment and development economic strategy and framework to assess economic conditions. Triple bottom line, this social well-being and health-oriented transportation project provides active transportation through approximate green space, which has been associated with mental and physical health benefits for users of said green space. And according to the Youth Development Task Force, the families in Sycamore Drive area are grossly underserved. The closest opportunity they have is the public library, which is a journey via public transit. And this project provides new transportation opportunities. Yeah, so I might have went a little fast since I got started slow, but any questions? I skipped over some statistics. So now that I have this map here, this project, you know, if you look at the census data, the block level population data is adjacent to this project in the neighborhoods along Hawthorne, Forest Heights, Hampton Park, and Sycamore Drive. There's approximately 4,600 residents. I think that's from 2010 census, so that might be a little bit low. And based on statistics I got from EJ Screen, approximately 70% of the total population is considered to be low income. Yeah, so questions?
Thank you, Seth. We'll start with Daryl, then Andrea. Daryl?
Good evening. I know your neighborhood very well, especially when you go down to Sycamore Drive and them areas down there behind the Mexican restaurant. Isn't that the same area, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at that area, and I know that area well because y'all got very, very bad potholes. I used to take somebody from work back to home. He lived down in that area, and y'all had bad. I'm like looking at it. I said, you're looking for to make a greenway area when you think that you asked the city or something about fixing your streets first before you decide on, pathway. Because y'all, that area is terrible. I agree with you 100%. I'm like, for it to be downtown, and just because it's behind everything, I understand what you're doing. I understand your plight in that area because that area is really, really, really badly damaged. But I would hope that you would ask for them to fix your roads first before you want to put sidewalks there, because all the areas needed. Trust me, I know all the areas needed. But see
Yeah.
about asking them to fix your roads while this is
Yeah.
being processed too.
And it's possible Sycamore Drive is somewhere on the pavement maintenance schedule.
Okay, it really, really, really needed bad.
Yeah. Andrea, go right ahead.
I just want to make a little bit of a disclosure here on the board of SORBA. And let me just, for those of you who don't know, it is the Southern Off-Road Bicycle Association in town. And SORBA Athens recently, I think, has been very focused on equity and appreciating that our membership doesn't really reflect the larger community within which we ride, and has been very much committed to trying to grow the sport and be more accessible, and has been working on putting a pump track at Walker Park with a bike library that would be accessible to children at Nellie B and 4th Street Village Apartments. They could come check out bikes. And I think that this project, even though I'm biased because I'm on the board, I just want to say that in my mind, this would be access to a park and green space on the west side that we don't currently have. That as a resident of Forest Heights until June, or it was July 2020, we had access to existing natural surface trails and an existing gravel road that is a sewage road that the sewage maintenance trucks drive down in Beach Haven Park. But during the pandemic, when most of us were outside and active and at home and using this area, the park got posted and we were no longer able to access this green space. And so I think it would be something that would open this area back up to all the 2,300 households that live adjacent to this area, but also create real connectivity across West Broad Street to Sycamore Drive neighborhood, and give the kids in that neighborhood access to sidewalks and green space. And I think that we're learning more and more how nature connection is something that a lot of kids in underserved communities are really deprived of, and can really impact their social, emotional well-being and behavior, physical health, everything. So I just want to put my bias out there for everyone.
Thank you, Andrea. Alan, and can you go ahead and bring down your screen for now, Seth?
Yes.
And go right ahead, Alan.
Okay, he may have to bring it back up, but I'm just having a hard time understanding what this project is, so I need a little more clarification on it. I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I know that Beach Haven Park is less than a block from the Sycamore Road area. I've been in the Sycamore Road area lots and lots of times. I know that it is an underserved population and it needs some desperate love. I heard you say putting a multi-use greenway path in there. But I don't understand what your big ask. So is this going from just the entrance of Beach Haven, putting a multi-use path and sidewalk into Sycamore, which means it would also kind of overlap with the Atlanta Highway project? Just re-explain it in a little more detail of exactly what the ask is, please?
Yeah, there should, I should have put it in this presentation, but there should be a map in the packet for this project that shows specifically the sections, but I'll show you here on my screen. But so my understanding is that none of the pedestrian infrastructure through Beach Haven Park is funded under the 2020 SPLOST. So this would fund some kind of multi-use trail from Oglethorpe Avenue all the way through Beach Haven, connecting to River Court, and then also connecting under Atlanta Highway to the end of Sycamore Drive, and then a multi-use path along Sycamore Drive connecting to Atlanta Highway, which currently lacks infrastructure, but I think it's proposed under a separate project. But this is just the transportation infrastructure through Beach Haven. And then what's not on this map that I'm proposing is trail connectivity to all of these stars on this map, essentially. So ensuring connectivity to Columbia Brookside, connectivity to the end of Gardenia Drive, what's labeled here as University Oaks apartment homes, and connectivity to the end of Sycamore Drive and up Sycamore Drive to future Atlanta Highway corridor projects. Does
That help? Be coming on the back end of Sycamore Drive instead of going along the road. Okay, thank you. That seems like a very worthwhile project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions from the committee? Madeline?
I have to, it's incumbent on me to say, as someone, once again, I keep apologizing for announcing that I've been on the Greenway Commission for 20 years and have now been rotated off. This particular project, that area of our community is one of the emeralds in the necklace. Far in addition to providing that neighborhoods connect with schools and major highways and parks. That area, Beach Haven in particular, but also certainly Forest Heights and Columbia, that is one of the most extraordinarily, breathtakingly beautiful areas of our emerald necklace. So I'm remiss if I don't acknowledge that as we contemplate this project.
Thank you, Madeline. Additional questions from the committee? And there are some questions about the status of Beach Haven.
Lauren, it's Alex Bond. Can I have permission to speak for a second?
Yeah, please go right ahead, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been watching the chat. So Beach Haven, the park portion, and Seth did talk about this in the presentation. That's a SPLOST 2020 project, but this segment of trail, multi-use trail through it, it's not part of that project proposal. So it's not, it's complementary to that project, which is working on a different timeline, working on the SPLOST 2020 timeline.
Thank you, Alex. I'm posting a link to the Beach Haven SPLOST 2020 project. Yes. Questions, committee members? Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? I'm trying to pull the map back up. So, okay. I'm looking at this map and I see so much potential to create connectivity to these Athens neighborhoods, particularly Sycamore Drive, that is so cut off. I think a lot of y'all who have been around Athens know that Sycamore Drive was Epps Bridge. It was the original route. At the end of Sycamore Drive, you can see the remains of the original Epps Bridge. And then sometime between, I think maybe between the 20s and 30s, like Atlanta Highway got built and expanded, and then Sycamore Drive became what it is today. And there's a ton of residents back here, a ton of apartment communities. I know someone who lived back here, and you will see people walking up and down this road all the time. And that Beach Haven is so close, yet so far because Atlanta Highway is so big. There's a lot of potential here. And so I appreciate Sorba for presenting this idea to connect these neighborhoods. I love all these projects that provide connectivity when something is so close. It's just right there. If we could just get there. Teresa, please go right ahead.
Hi, yes, another great project for this evening's entertainment. I appreciate this very much. My question has to do with breaking out the costs for the Sycamore Drive portion from the rest of the multi-use path. And the reason I say that is that Sycamore Drive could become a candidate for one of Athens in Motion's projects, assuming it gets funded through TSPLOST. So it would be great if you could break the finances up for us so we could understand how much is what is for multi-use, how much is for sidewalk and then for the Sycamore Drive portion. Thank you.
Yeah, the original numbers I was given for the multi-use path and the sidewalk along Sycamore Drive was approximately 600,000. But hopefully, I think we're going to be submitting a revised project. So hopefully, in that budget, I can separate the costs or at least note them.
Let's see. Madeline, did you have your hand up, or was that Andrea?
I just put it up because I felt like Daryl asked a good question in chat, and it was about this issue of the property remaining closed because of the safety concerns about the historic structure there. And my understanding was that this proposal included amount of money for operating costs that would be sufficient to have staff be able to do their inspection that they need to do. But I was hoping maybe Alex could speak to that.
Yeah, I can. We worked with Sorba and Seth on the operations costs like we did on a lot of these projects. Once the trail is put in, there is an associated operating cost with the trail segment monitoring the trail itself. As far as the park proper, that operating cost comes with the park development in the SPLOST 2020 project. It's kind of two different timelines, but understanding that is a park and a park coming, that's why the operations costs for this they may seem on the kind of the minimalist side compared to some of the other ones we've put out, but it actually matches when someone is asked to put forward a trail like the earlier one, Sandy Creek Park rear access. The operations should match between those because this will be a larger operation within the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Thanks, Alex.
And I'll also, again, just since it got brought up, right now there is no operational money tied to this, and so we get there maybe once a month between sustainability office and leisure services just to kind of check the place. But we can't maintain a condition where residents can go in where we feel comfortable like they're going to have a safe experience at this point.
Hey, Alex, is there operations money under SPLOST, the SPLOST 2020 project?
Yeah. When Tommy's or when Stork Athens presented SPLOST 2020's Beach Haven project, it had its own operations costs, and this project's operations costs complement those operation costs, just like the project itself.
Thank you.
And Alan has a question in the chat that I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if anyone knows, is this project potentially eligible for TAD funds?
I will tell you guys that the Beach Haven Park did not get included in the TAD. However, most of the Atlanta Highway road frontage did get included in the TAD for that area. So a portion of what Sorba's put forth could qualify, but the bulk of it within Beach Haven Park doesn't, just based on the boundary lines.
Seth, so I think this is a little bit along the lines of what Teresa was talking or asking about, but in the event that we can't see this broken down by cost, have you thought about what ways you would reduce this project?
Yeah, our initial idea of reducing costs was to use either natural surface trails or existing sewer construction routes or easements. But in technical review, I sort of put that forth at the beginning, and in technical review, some of the budget numbers already went up. So I'm not sure. I mean, this portion of this project that is, more important is that multiple people have spoken is the Sycamore Drive connectivity. But yeah, our perfect scenario would be that we just use the existing routes that are there to reduce cost. But I've gotten some pushback on that.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for your presentation. I'd love to see some connection to Sycamore Drive and Brookside, maybe Hampton Park Drive at the minimum. Definitely appreciate y'all. All right.
Lauren?
Yes.
I apologize one last time, and I'm just, my memory is not perfect here, but I have to say that probably for the last 5 years, the Greenway Commission, but also some private entities and some nonprofits have been involved in I'm channeling the Murmur Trestle on this one, because the farmhouse, the magical bridge across the creeks, this land, I beg everyone to visit. It is one of the most extraordinary properties in our Athens-Clarke viewshed. And there was a very significant movement to look at this being National Register caliber. So, not to move forward at some level on supporting this project just begs me to ask each of you to stop and pause and pay it a visit. It's a gem.
And I'll throw in that there are organized walks with historic Athens where you guys can do such a thing. But again, we are trying to keep it close to individuals.
In case anyone missed that, because Alex is breaking up a little bit, but this area is not open to the public, to individuals. And you said that we could organize a group or organize parties could get in touch with ACC and visit. Okay.
I'm sorry, it must have been my headphones. Yes, we can see about an organized visit, but also Historic Athens does some tours of the area as well.
Thank you, Alex. And echoing what Madeline said, it's a really magical place. Very interesting. Okay, but we have to go on to our next projects. We still have quite a few more. So thank you again, Seth and Sorba.
Thank you.
Up next, we have project number 32. This is Park Avenue, Talmadge Drive at Prince Avenue intersection improvement. And we have with us here the Prince Avenue Corridor user, the Prince Avenue Corridor Improvements User Group and Piedmont Athens Regional Hospital. That's who submitted it. And we have Clint and Mark, did you say that you are co-presenting with Clint?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so we have Clint McCrory and Mark Abel. You may begin when ready. It looks like you guys are driving, biking,
That's right. Can you
pedaling.
hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. We'd like to thank the group for this incredible amount of work that you've been doing on all these 90 projects. And thanks for taking the time to hear our presentation. This intersection should be familiar to all of you. It's the intersection in front of the hospital where they're building the new building at this moment. I'm submitting it together with Mark Abel, and we're both members of the Prince Avenue Corridor Improvements User Group. The submission is in cooperation with Athens-Clarke County staff, and it's in particular, they did the budget estimates for this project, and it's strongly supported by the Athens-Clarke County Traffic Engineering Department. And we also, as we'll discuss later, have a letter from Piedmont Athens Regional Medical Center CEO Michael Burnett. So they are big supporters of this improvement. So before we get into the details, the general idea is that this is a safety project. It improves safety for all users. It's really a multimodal safety project for drivers, public transportation, emergency vehicles, bikers, pedestrians, and it complements an ongoing project by the Georgia DOT on pedestrian safety improvements. In fact, it was recommended in the road safety audit, which GDOT led in 2014. This was one of their high impact and high cost proposals for improving safety on Prince Avenue. This has been listed as part of TSPLOST 2018. It's Project 16. But the price tag of 4.7 million is as big as the entire price tag for the Prince Avenue Corridor project. So it won't fit in that in TSPLOST 2018 Project 16. Here's a view of the current intersection. I'm sure everyone has driven, walked through here, or biked. The problem is the offset intersection. You've got Talmadge at the bottom of your screen to the south and Park at the top, with Prince Avenue running east-west. And the corner there, the southeast corner, is where the new medical tower is being built right now. As GDOT pointed out in the road safety audit, the left turning movements for vehicles turning from Prince onto Talmadge or from Prince onto Park are very long and confusing. And you may have experienced this as a pedestrian. Cars get sort of stuck in the middle of the intersection and they see oncoming traffic and they have to speed around their left turn. And whoops, there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. So it's especially dangerous for pedestrians. And there's no crosswalk on the west side of the intersection. So that really needs to be fixed. It's the design of the intersection really also basically ignores cyclists. They're not really taken into consideration at all. The proposal, this concept plan was drawn by the consultant Benesh, who's a consultant for the TSPLOST 2018. The proposal is to make it into a standard four-way signalized intersection by bending Park Avenue a little bit. So we don't have to change Talmadge, just Park. And this allows for safer vehicular turning movements. Now we'll have crosswalks on all four legs and much better access from the bus stops, especially the eastbound bus stop, to the medical center. So I'll hand it over to Mark at this point.
Thank you, Clint. And I will add that I was almost hit by a car doing exactly that a couple of weeks ago as I went through the intersection, and they sort of dove across traffic, and then I was there. So I can certainly resonate with that. So this shows the new tower, which is the first big capital investment in Athens by the Piedmont Medical Group. It is a major upgrade for the hospital, and they consider it their new front door. I also think this photo, which I took when I was on a bike ride from the subway entrance on Park, gives you a sense of how kind of messy and messed up and confusing this intersection is. Next slide, please. So the context is that this intersection is really a critical node for our community. The medical center is on the south side. The new Athens campus of Piedmont University is across the street in that big new building where Allen's Hamburgers used to be. A growing number of shops and restaurants are there, Barbaritos, Flying Biscuit. And that combination of daytime and evening use means that this area is busy most hours of the day or night. During rush hour, there's a heavy load of commuter traffic. There are lots of improvements planned throughout the corridor to enhance the pedestrian and bike experience. This project complements those and other planned improvements that you have heard about previously from Peter Norris. Next slide, please. The rationale, safety and efficiency are going to be improved for all road users. That means cars are going to have an easier time turning and making their way through. Pedestrians are going to be safer. Emergency vehicles serving the medical center will have better access, and cyclists will be better served. Improving this intersection was identified by the Prince Avenue Corridor Group as a key priority. It was one of the top things that we rated in our assessment. We also just got public input from over 200 members of the community, and it was also ranked highest in the public input for all intersection improvements and among the highest overall. So the public really feels that this is an intersection that is long overdue for fixing. This project is going to complement the pedestrian safety improvements being planned by GDOT that we've been talking about and that are going to be implemented in the next year or two. It also really serves the Complete Streets initiative by valuing pedestrians equally with cars and valuing cyclists equally with cars in transit. And the Vision Zero initiative that has a goal of 0 serious injuries or fatalities for all road users. Next, please. And finally, the letter of support that we got, the Piedmont Athens Regional Medical Center serves Athens and the surrounding counties. And obviously it's a really important economic driver for the county, probably second after the university. We were really pleased to get such a strong letter of support from the CEO, Mr. Michael Burnett. In the excerpt that's shown on the screen, he highlights the improved safety for everyone, pedestrians, cars, and emergency vehicles, the greater efficiency, and the positive economic impact for our community, and just creating a more welcoming gateway into Athens. Next slide. And at this point, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee?
I had one more comment. I
okay.
forgot to say that realigning this intersection was considered by the Athens Regional Medical Center Board and the Community Advisory Committee more than 20 years ago. And Mark and I were actually on this Community Advisory Committee then. So this the need for this intersection improvement has been recognized for a long time.
My hair was blonde then, not the Colonel Sanders white that it is now.
Nice. I want to see pictures of y'all on the committee. Teresa, please.
Hi, Mark and Clint. Yes, that intersection needs major surgery. I think The picture you have looks really good. My only question is any of this going to be bike lane, or are bicycles just going to share the road with the cars?
So that's something that's still under discussion, and there hasn't been a final determination made yet. This part of the roadway is under control by GDOT up until millage. We do know from public input from those, over 200 Athenians and also from our internal discussions on the corridor committee that bike lanes were the other thing that were most valued throughout the corridor. So that was the one thing that rose to the top along with this intersection. So it's certainly something that many of us would like to see. Whether it can be done on this part of the corridor is unclear. Hopefully, we will be able to do other things that make it safer, that reduce speed, and make it a better experience. But I can't say for sure at this point whether it'll be bike lanes.
This concept plan actually illustrates part of GDOT's idea for what they want to do to this section. You can see there are these green medians. If there were bike lanes on this part, you probably wouldn't also have room for the median. So this is just one option among several that have been discussed.
So that kind of segues into a couple of questions here. Daryl in the chat was wondering if the hospital is planning to help out any as our second largest employer. Have they expressed an interest in collaborating at all financially?
No, I haven't heard any such thing, no.
All right, and then my next question is one I think Daryl will like. You mentioned working with GDOT on this project. So like, how much are they doing? How much do we have to put forth? Like, is there any chance that they'd be willing to go a bit more? And why do we have to put forth the funds for this particular intersection? Daryl, I saw him his thumb went up. I know the hard.
Yeah, GDOT is GDOT. Well, their project is framed as a pedestrian safety project, and what they plan to do is to upgrade all of the existing crosswalks to current ADA standards. That's on the entire length of Prince Avenue, including the part that's owned, quote unquote, by Athens-Clarke County. And they also have this idea of these medians that you see in this picture. And they're also going to resurface the entire length of Prince Avenue. As far as this particular project, since we're adding a crosswalk, the fact that GDOT is interested in upgrading all the crosswalks, so we're adding a crosswalk and moving other crosswalks. So it's conceivable that they could participate in that part of the project since that's within the purview of what they have proposed. It's my understanding that they have a federal pedestrian safety grant that they're going to use to help fund their part of the project. It's actually more than $4 million, but they plan to do a lot of things to the whole corridor.
No, I hear you with that question about the hospital, but and perhaps a public-private partnership could be explored, but that certainly isn't something that's on the table right now. And this is me not holding my breath.
Gotcha. So remind me, Clint, you had said repaving the whole corridor for Prince Avenue. Does that include the locally owned side? I forgot.
Yes, it does.
Right, so the idea is to try and get funding for these intersection improvements while GDOT is also doing the other upgrades and potentially getting some cost savings that way and collaborating.
Yes, for sure. It's been very difficult to get a handle on their scheduling. It's kind of a mystery to me, and we've had some meetings. The TSPLOST committee, the user group, has had some meetings with GDOT representatives, and the consultant Hammerland has been talking with GDOT some, but it's been a little bit difficult getting information out of them. But they know that we're doing our improvements, and we know that what their plan is, and it's a matter of coordinating the timing of them.
Gotcha. Katie, please go ahead. Katie, we can't hear you. Are you muted?
I'll keep in my phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would just want to make sure this didn't preclude something really good on Prince. It sounds like the GDOT projects really aren't enough. I mean, it seems like such an important place for protected bike lanes. You know, it's such an important bike route. I totally agree. Those medians, whoever said it before, I'd much rather see, you know, a buffered bike lane with that right-of-way space. So I don't know if Clint and Mark or someone else knows, you know, what GDOT's plans are, and if there's any way we could make them better.
Well, I'll talk and then I'll let Clint go. You know, GDOT doesn't value. I think the culture there may be evolving, and I hope I'm not talking out of school, but you know, I think there's still a mindset of reducing delay and speeding traffic and getting people from one side of the state to another. And I think, you know, I see this, you know, it seems to be evolving. I think it's going to be a bigger lift to get protected bike lanes, which I would love to see on this section than on the in-town section from Millage East that we do control. The user groups were quite clear, and the public input was quite clear that this was something they wanted on the whole corridor. And I do think that given the speed of traffic, which often, you know, exceeds 50 miles an hour, I walk my dog down there every day, and I work on the medical campus. You know, you need a protected bike lane. You can't just have paint on the ground. And there are places where it's wide enough where if you lost some parking, which may not be popular, you could easily do this, I think. But you know, again, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do, and we just got the public input, and so the next steps are going to be processing that input. Clint, I don't know, would you like to add something?
Well, this particular project is rather independent of whether we put bike lanes on this section. I mean, ignoring the medians, which those are there just because Ganesh started with a GDOT plan to make this drawing. I agree with Mark that it'll be a lot easier to get bike lanes on the part of Prince closer into town. And that's what the user group has been concentrating on. In general, except for the medians, the rest of the GDOT project is really independent of the idea of bike lanes. In fact, the fact that they have budgeted to resurface the entire roadway means that you know, it's putting the striping differently is a zero cost. So in that sense, they could facilitate whatever we are planning to do with lane configurations.
Daryl, go right ahead.
Good evening. My question is it wide enough for a medium? I'm trying to figure out that's a heavily traffic area.
Yeah,
and you got the parking areas that, you know, they park on the side of the curb, and then you got the house, not the hospital area, but you got areas where that's I'm trying to get a good, because I know the firehouse is there, and as you go up, when it's like going towards the liquor store, you got that one area. It's nothing but parking. You got to go around. You get what I'm saying? You got to go around the parked cars to get there.
Yeah,
Or
This isn't part of the project, though. The medians aren't part of our project. They're not part of what we're talking about. They're part of the separate GDOT project. They're just there because I think the consultant started with the GDOT drawings, and then really the total focus that we have is on this intersection here. I hear you. The medians are certainly have issues with them, and that's still kind of up in the air to what extent they're going to put medians in. But it's not part of this project.
So you're just concentrating on the square.
That's right. Yep.
That's correct. Yeah. So the way the road is configured now is, instead of a median in the middle, there's a center turn lane. And so what GDOT is proposing, which is very surprising to me, is they want to remove the center turn lane and replace it with a median. So you wouldn't be able to make a left turn in or out of many of the businesses along here. So I really hope that doesn't fly. And as Mark said, that is not part of our project. If you will, imagine the medians, which are green in this picture, as being as remaining turn lanes, as they are now turn lanes.
I understand where you're going at now. You're talking about the round circle area. I got you on that. I understand.
Cool.
Thanks, Daryl, for helping us get that clarity there on the project scope. Katie, you gonna take us home?
Right, someone. Yeah, just one more question. One of the scary parts about crossing Prince is that it's so wide. I mean, there are the 4 travel lanes and so maybe I missed that part, but is there any shortening of the crossing distance at this intersection with this design?
I don't believe it's going to be shortening. It may, yeah, I don't believe there's going to be any shortening of it. But there will be a new pedestrian crosswalk on what we're looking at on the left side of the intersection there, on the west side. And it will be slightly shorter. They are planning this sort of turning lane, what we call a slip lane. And this is conceptual, but that would create 2 short crossings rather than 1 long crossing on Park.
Yeah, that would help. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. That this plan doesn't include any shortening of the major crossing crosswalks, but the improvement in the signalization will add a lot to pedestrian safety. It'll be a simpler light cycle that's more easily understandable by everyone, including pedestrians.
All right, any last questions? Well, we thank y'all for presenting this challenging intersection to us. Another challenging intersection in Athens that we got to fix.
Right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And committee, I'm sorry, we are a little bit behind when it comes to projects, but hopefully we'll be out of here as close to 9:30 as we can. I apologize for that. Next on the list is project number 90. This is Athens in Motion Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Implementation, submitted by the Athens in Motion Commission. I believe that Mark Abel is going to stick on and is going to pedal us through this.
I love the pedal analogy. Thank you. So everyone can see my screen. I'm assuming should say Athens in Motion Bicycle and Pedestrian Network Implementation. Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm Mark Abel. I'm a family doc. I work at UGA. I'm also formerly the chair of the Greenway Commission, formerly chair of the Board of Health, and currently on Athens in Motion. And the common thread that goes through all of those things is that I really believe that making our community healthier means making it easier and more pleasant and safer for people to walk and bike and get out of their cars. And that's just sort of one of my core beliefs. I think there's a lot of good evidence to support that. So what is Athens in Motion? It was established in 2018 by the Mayor and Commission, and the goal is to supervise the implementation of the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. And this plan envisions a great place to live where whether you're walking, cycling, rolling, driving, using transit, you are valued equally. Someone walking on the street and waiting in a crosswalk is valued just as much as a car driver. That you can do those things safely, and that we use them as a way to address inequities in our community. It says Carly Evans there. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to change the slides by law, but she couldn't be here this evening, but so I'll be doing the presentation. So how can we make it safe and enjoyable to get around? People are going to walk more and bike more if they feel safe and if they can do it in a pleasant environment. So how can we go from this, where bikers are in peril and we've got sidewalks that are decaying, sidewalks that end, high-speed traffic that we have to share, to this, something where we have a great infrastructure, where people are, throughout our community are served well by the pedestrian and bike infrastructure. A statistic that I came across, this was from the GDOT report in 2018, showed that per capita, per 100,000 people, more people die and are injured while biking in Athens than anywhere else in Georgia. We should be appalled by this. We're a community that values these alternative forms of transportation, yet we don't have an infrastructure that is yet safe enough. These are the goals and objectives of the Athens in Motion Commission. And you can see that front and center there is equity. That is a key factor as we prioritize projects. There are hundreds of potential projects we could do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tier 1 projects that this funds, and equity, as you'll see, is a key factor. We also want to get more users out on the road, out on the sidewalks, on the multi-use paths, and we want to connect these networks. I've heard several other presenters this evening talk about creating a network that's connected, so it's not just isolated pockets of trails. Right now, a lot of the people who are biking and in Athens are in that highly confident range. You have to be sometimes to navigate the streets. What we want to do is create infrastructure that is separating human beings from automobiles, so that the somewhat confident and even the interested of all ages can get out there. I'd like to see infrastructure that an 8-year-old could ride with their parents to school. I'd like to see infrastructure that retirees can use, someone of all ages, not just spandex clad, athletes. So there are several questions that you posed, and I'll try to address those here. How will this project close the equity gap in Athens-Clarke County? Well, the priority factors are shown here for prioritizing these projects, for identifying those tier 1 projects. And percent in poverty in a neighborhood, percent over age 65, neighborhoods that have no or few sidewalks, those with more bus coverage so people can access transit, and more households without cars. Those are the things we look at. We also look at how close these neighborhoods or these potential projects are to parks and schools and key residential and commercial districts. And of course, we think about connectivity when we prioritize. So how are we going to address the strategic commitments and project selection criteria? I was looking at them earlier this evening. There are about, 10 or 12 or 15 of them, and we basically ticked every box. We are explicitly using equity in prioritizing these projects. We are promoting the upgrade and use of alternative transportation facilities. We're promoting increased pedestrian access to transit, making it they can do that first and last mile or half mile or quarter mile of their trip more safely. The more people we have walking and rolling and biking, the fewer people we have in cars, less vehicle time, better air quality. We're building on the projects that we were funded in TSPLOST 2018. We're going to continue building sidewalks, separated bike paths, and multi-use trails. We're trying to do projects that are complementary to those of the Greenway Network Plan and the corridor plans. And of course, the community is safer when people aren't interacting with cars, when they're separated from them. And it's healthier if we can create a community where more people are using their feet or a bike to do their daily travels, to get to work, to go to the bodega, to go to the store, to do their go to school. That makes people healthier. And the third question was, how do we improve the triple bottom line of prosperity, social well-being, and the environment? Well, if we can give people options for getting safely to work or to school, maybe they only need one car. Maybe they don't need a car at all. Also, if we have great infrastructure, like places like Greenville come to mind, or the other communities, Madison, Wisconsin, Ann Arbor, other places that have built terrific infrastructure, that helps attract business, which wants a good place for their employees to live. Having more people biking and walking past businesses, restaurants, makes them more likely to stop in, to patronize them. You don't see people driving 45 miles an hour suddenly stop and decide they're going to pop into a store. Well, that happens when you're walking. And finally, I think there's a social capital that's improved. You don't see people driving 45 miles an hour past each other, talking to one another. But I walk in my neighborhood every day. I ride my bike. I interact with folks that way. You say hello, you strike up a conversation, you meet a new neighbor. That's building social capital, which we, I think, all need these days. So the projects are in the appendix. At the very end of your document is a list of 44 bike and or pedestrian projects. The total cost is very high, up to, if you add it all up, it's about $140 million. We're not going to do that in the next 3 years. This is a 10, 20-year or longer plan to really fully build out a connected network in Athens-Clarke County. It's a living list. It gets updated regularly. We use those prioritization criteria. Some of those may evolve and change over time as neighborhoods change. We are opportunistic. So sometimes a project will make sense to do because they're building a new sewer and we can put a bike path on top of it, things like that. But we are focusing primarily on those tier 1 projects, and you can see that list in the document. They're mostly, the tier 1s are in blue, they're mostly within the loop, but also extend out into East Athens, as you can see, and they really spread out throughout our community. Here are the projects that are currently in progress or complete from the TSPLOST 2018 funding. And these were prioritized originally by the folks that created the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan and created the Athens in Motion Commission. Going forward, the Athens in Motion Commission will be working with staff, with Mayor and Commission to identify projects to move into the construction phase. You can see there are sidewalks, West Broad, Holman Avenue, Magnolia. Out north and northwest of town, we've got Jefferson River Road. We've got the Cherokee Road east of town, Riverbend Road near College Station. Barber Street is in planning right now, and King Avenue as well. So hopefully this gives you a sense of what we can do. This is an exciting project. We're asking for a lot of money. We hope that with the funding, we can build out at least 4 to 8 of those projects that are considered tier 1, and continue to build out this network for our community. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from the committee on the Athens in Motion bicycle and pedestrian network implementation project? Scott, go right ahead.
I don't necessarily have a question, just a comment. When I talk to a lot of people about the bike infrastructure that we do have in Athens, and the conversation inevitably leads towards what Athens in Motion is and what it could bring to Athens, then the conversation has to go to why is this not happening now? Well, because there's none of these projects are funded. We have some from TSPLOST, and then Athens in Motion is obviously looking for this amount of money to address the projects that they're working on. I support it. It's a little kind of hard to wrap your head around a bucket of money and tier 1s, but I think y'all are doing good work, and I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, one of the challenges is that these kind of projects are, for a variety of reasons, more expensive in the U.S. than we think they should be, more expensive than they are in other countries. That's not a problem we can address. It's just something we have to deal with. And that's why we do try to take advantage of opportunities that arise where we might be able to piggyback on something else that's going on, or partner. We're also supportive of other grant applications and federal funding that we can try to get. But yeah, this is our shot. We don't want to miss our shot, as some musical once said.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Scott. Questions? Dawn, go right ahead. Dawn, you're muted. And Mark, can you go ahead and bring down your screen?
Sorry about that.
Sure. If I can figure it out.
Apologies for not knowing more about Athens in Motion. I see a list at the end of the proposal of 126 projects in Tier 1. I think I'm reading that. Without going into great detail, how do you come up with the 25 million of this project, and how many of the 126 have been done? Is it just those that you had in the slide? I guess I'm trying to wrap.
Sure. No, that's a good question. And, so there are a few questions in there. I think it's 44 Tier 1 bike and pedestrian projects. You may have a longer list of other that includes Tier 2 and Tier 3 projects. But the Tier 1, there are about 44. There are currently, there were 6 bike and 6 pedestrian projects that were initially prioritized. Some of those have been combined. So for example, Barber Street was, I think, bike separately from pedestrian, and they said, hey, let's put that money together. And Cherokee was the same way. So some of these have been mashed up a little bit. And so we have these 8 projects that are currently either done or underway, and we hope to fund another 4 to 8 projects out of those 44. In terms of the amount of money that's requested, we wanted to be ambitious but realistic, I think. We didn't want to, we're not going to ask for 124 million and do all the Tier 1 projects, right? We know that you have to prioritize, and we know that there are a lot of needs in the community. So what we wanted to do was something that we thought was realistic, that would allow us to continue to build out the infrastructure. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and just thank you for one more follow-up on that. So there have been many projects presented that seem to be some of the same areas that are on your list. How do you go about doing that if, East Athens presented something, and does it go on your list? How does that work?
So yeah, that's a great question. And so when, for example, Prince Avenue corridor is a Tier 1, was cited as Tier 1. Now, if that gets funded separately, then we would look elsewhere. We would try to complement it, connect to it. If they weren't able to complete it, we might be able to assign some funding to complete it. So let's say they could do all the pedestrian stuff and realign the intersection, but they didn't have funding for the separated bike lanes, let's say from Millage to Pulaski. Well, that might be something that we could contribute to. But ideally, what we want to do is complement these other projects. There are a lot of great projects, and I've heard several of them tonight. We certainly would try to fill in those gaps and create that connectivity.
Lauren, sorry, got one more. Sorry. Is it just cycling? I don't get it.
No, these are bike and pedestrian projects. And I should say, I don't know why I always say bike, and it could be pedestrian and bike. There is many pedestrian projects and sidewalks, perhaps more actually, than there are bicycle. Really, a big part of it is making it safe for all users. I ride a bike a few times a week, but I walk every day for about 40 minutes to an hour. And so I value both, and I see the value of both in our community.
Okay, I got 1,000 other questions, but I'll leave it.
Shoot me an email.
We can come back to you, Dawn. Go right ahead, Madeline.
Well, I have to say, Mark, thank you so much for this. You and I go way, way back, and we're both in healthcare. And I guess the thing that I would love to hear from you, in addition to your role as a former chair of the Greenway Commission and integral to the medical community's future, is to state unequivocally the power of exercise to impact the global health of our community. It just can't be said too much. So if you would just take a
Yeah,
moment.
well, yeah, I mean, I teach about this stuff. I'm in the College of Public Health. I'm a professor there, and I'm a family doc, and I practiced for many, many years until I just decided to retire from patient care this month, actually. And but when I'm with a patient in the room and I say, you got to exercise more, and we know that exercise is the best medicine, but often there's no safe place to walk. There are no sidewalks in their neighborhood. They don't feel comfortable on a bike. When you look around the world at communities where biking and walking, where 10, 20, 30% of trips are made that way, they have lower rates of obesity, lower rates of heart disease, lower rates of diabetes. You know, there's no doubt the data are just so strong that creating a healthy community means creating a place where people want to get out. So instead of driving my car, you know, up to Barber Street to buy, you know, groceries at the bodega or at Daily, I prefer to walk there because it's a more pleasant thing to do.
You the magic free pill.
And also, I think not everyone has the time for a gym membership. For, you know, they got family, they got commitments. So if we can just build it into our daily life, that's what I try. It shouldn't feel like exercise. I'll give one last thing before, because I know you guys are tired, but I was a visiting professor in Dublin for 4 months. I never set foot inside a gym. I walked 2 miles to the Royal College of Surgeons every morning, 2 miles back. I didn't need a gym. I was walking. Everyone else was walking. It was a total walking community in Dublin, total cycling community, and they did that transformation in 10 years. At least the cycling part. They've always been big walkers. But you know, you don't, and this is for folks that don't have time or can't afford a gym. I think that's another thing to think about.
Yeah, and let's be clear that as we have learned, there's a lot of people who already are walking around Athens where there isn't a sidewalk, where they're biking, and they're biking next to 55-mile-per-hour traffic, and this plan seeks to give them those facilities so that they can continue doing what they're doing in a safe way. Dawn, did you want to ask some of your follow-up questions? Dawn, did you have any additional questions? Okay. Yeah, Alan, did you want to share your comment?
Sorry, I'm out walking because it's doing the exercise again. It's just we've got the in-town area has millions of places to walk and bike, but the outliers don't have much at all. So I'm concerned that the Athens in Motion plan and many of the presentations don't really take anything else into consideration, such as like Timothy Road. We don't have a bus stop. We don't have buses that go on here, so we get knocked out by the Athens in Motion plan. We're not close to a bus or a elementary school, but a lot of kids walk to the elementary school. They can if they live in the rich districts, but not so much other things. So this whole concern.
Yeah, I mean, I think I appreciate that. And we lived for about 6 months on Timothy Road while our house was being built. And so we would walk that. And you're right. The sidewalk is discontinuous. You have to cross the road. It really has so much potential, I think, as a great place for the neighborhood to walk along there. And I don't remember if it's a tier 1 project or not. But as I said, we do reprioritize these projects roughly every 5 years is the plan. And so, you know, that's something where I think community input and recognition of this as an important corridor could be important. But also, as you head further out of town, I know when I was at one point the only doctor in Madison County, Georgia, about 30 years ago. And a lot of my patients, that was the worst because they're in a rural area, a narrow road, no sidewalk, no place to exercise, no place to walk. So it's a big problem in the more rural parts of our county. I totally agree.
Well, I hear a lot of people talking about Timothy Road being rural.
It's not.
I
But,
didn't mean to imply that. I was thinking more the further outlying areas.
But like Daryl and I went on a tour of the 9th District this weekend, and like they don't have much credit for things in the Athens in Motion plan because, well, they're not people that Bike Athens reached out to or anything else with the Athens in Motion plan.
Yeah, so I hear you. I think we need to be looking at projects that are, out North Avenue and Nowhere Road, and we do have Jefferson River Road currently on the books as something that's prioritized and going to begin construction. We would love to see, out as you go out Chase Street and continue out to Newton Bridge Road. That's a high priority area for some sort of a multi-use path or sidewalk, or something to make it safer to get out to the park out there, the ballpark. And so, yeah, those are things that are on the radar, and something that we talk about at the meetings for sure.
Thank you, Alan. And so the Athens in Motion plan, the projects that are attached are just the highest priority ones. There's actually 75, and Timothy Road is one of the projects that is in the plan. It's just, a second or third tier, and we just have, I mean, you've heard it from our residents. There's just so many roads in Athens that don't have adequate facilities, and the way Athens in Motion seeks to try and bring some logic to the chaos in terms of deciding what comes first and what comes second is through that equity scoring criteria that Mark mentioned. And if you would like for him to elaborate on that, I'm sure he would be willing. But I'll include a link to all the roads that are in the that have been identified in the Athens in Motion plan. It's just, there's just so many.
Yeah, and the packet that you have does have toward the end the prioritization process criteria and more information on that. And I'm happy to share the full plan. It's a PDF file. If anybody wants to email me, it's just my last name, Ebell, E-B-E-L-L @uga.edu.
All right. Any additional questions, comments, discussion? Well, thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks all that you guys are doing. We really appreciate it as a community. Thanks. I'm going to go eat Little Lily sub right now. I'm hungry.
Jealous. So jealous. All right. Last but not least, project number 72, improving intersections and safety in the Boulevard neighborhood. And I believe we have Sarah Rupesberg with us tonight. Sarah?
Hi, yes, it's Rupersberg. Quite a mouthful.
Rupesberg, did I say it right?
That's right, yeah.
Wonderful. So thank you for sticking around. Are you going to drive your presentation, or do you need Keith to do that for you?
Whatever works. I have it pulled up, but I don't know if how to share it on WebEx.
There should be a little share button towards the bottom of your screen.
I see it, but it's like faded out, so it looks like I don't have access to use that. If I haven't changed it, so if Keith wants to share it, that works for me too.
Okay.
Well, you should have access, but I'll share it in the interest of time. How about that? Maybe I don't have a setting on it. Let's see. Yours is 72. Okay. Oops. Gotta hit the share button. Sorry. There you go.
Thanks. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I'm happy to be here to present on behalf of the Boulevard Neighborhood Association. I'm the recently elected chairwoman for the group, and so this is something that I've sort of taken the lead on, but I've had support from the steering committee So I'm speaking on behalf of neighbors who contributed to this proposal and this presentation, as well as the steering committee tonight. So let me just begin by saying that I'm sure you all realize that the Boulevard neighborhood is located around 3 major transportation corridors: Prince Avenue, Chase Street, and Barber Street. And, you know, we're experiencing a lot of growth residentially and commercially in our neighborhood. So what we've aimed to do with this project is to raise awareness of the ways that that development is impacting traffic on some of the lesser known intersections that are more frequented by residents, but nonetheless important access points in our neighborhood to public facilities and to other businesses. So there's a couple of intersections we chose to focus on. You can move to the next slide. And that we're proposing for this project. The first one I'd like to discuss is Linden and Dubose. I apologize. I tried to take pictures and I could not get the file size to work to be able to send it. So if anyone would like pictures of these intersections, I have them. But I'll just give you a quick overview of the issue with this intersection. So currently it's a two-way stop. Linden is the street that has the right of way, and it is, a lot of neighbors have been complaining of the increasing amount of traffic between the hours of about 7 and 9 as commuters use Linden as a cut through to avoid the intersection of Chase and Prince. So we're seeing a lot of traffic traveling too quickly down the road, and during peak commuter times from people outside the neighborhood, but also people inside the neighborhood, because it's an access point to Chase Street Elementary School. Another issue with the intersection is that there's quite poor visibility. It's a narrow street. There's parking only on one side of it. And if you're trying to make a left turn from Dubose onto Linden, it's very difficult to see oncoming traffic. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, it's a route to Chase Street Elementary School. One lot on the corner of the intersection is empty. It's a place where lots of children like to play. And also another issue is that the curb, the gap between the curb and the street is quite severe in that intersection. And it's difficult to get a stroller, a bike, a wheelchair safely into the street if you needed to cross that intersection at this point. You can move it to the next. Oh, actually, wait, sorry. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. I'm sure you're all aware of the medical developments that have been going on the intersection of Chase and Prince Avenue. And we also see that as another issue, another reason to be concerned about this intersection, because we anticipate that once those medical spaces are full service and fully functioning, we're going to have a lot more traffic through this intersection. Okay, go to the next one. So the next intersection we've identified as troublesome is Winburn and Nantahala. And this intersection sort of represents the end of the residential section of Boulevard and the beginning of the commercial district that's now blossoming at Chase Park and the Tracy Street Lofts. So the residents at this part of our neighborhood have shared that they feel like it's really just becoming a commercial thoroughfare with so much traffic trying to access the businesses in Tracy Street Lofts and the Chase Park warehouse. Another issue that they have is that despite signs posting the prohibition of trucks or commercial vehicles through Winburn, they still use that intersection quite frequently and cut through Winburn to get to other parts of the neighborhood to, get out of the neighborhood. And then finally, and similar to Linden and Dubose, this intersection also suffers from poor visibility. There's hills, there's cars parked on the street, and there has been an accident within the last 2 years involving a speeding car and a parked car. Sorry, I keep tapping it like I can change it. Thank you. So this map just provides you with an aerial overview of the two intersections we're considering for implementation of this project. And essentially what the project is proposing is that for both intersections, it's the same. First of all, to conduct a study to ascertain how the intersections could be improved in terms of safety for all users, pedestrians, bikes, and motor vehicle traffic. Then we're also proposing that they be changed to four-way stops instead of two-way intersections as they currently are. And then adding crosswalks in both of the intersections. And because there's not sidewalk for those crosswalks to be accessible to, we've proposed sidewalks. So the circles are the intersection. If you can see it, the green is the crosswalks and the red lines are where sidewalk would potentially go. Of course, this is all dependent on the results of the studies, but I think these are the things that when we talked with neighbors, we heard as common refrains of what could be improved about those intersections. Okay, you can go to the next slide. I'm just going to take a few minutes to cover, oh, you could back up once real quick. Yeah, thank you. The criteria that has been shared as part of the TSPLOST selection process. And I feel, for me personally, I'm very new to this. I've been listening in on the last few presentations, and I can tell that you guys are all very, very familiar with the terminology and how this all works. But to me, this is new. So I hope you'll bear with me. And also just to say that I feel like the selection criteria and the criteria that the commission has identified, it really overlaps, and it was difficult for us to kind of tease out the nuances between these things. So I hope this makes sense, and if it doesn't, I'm happy to answer more questions. So in terms of closing the equity gap, we think that this is an extremely important criteria, and it's difficult for me as someone who's not familiar with all of the projects and all the things that they are proposing to say how this project would fit in. And, we recognize, obviously, we're from a neighborhood that has seen a lot of development and investment. And so I trust that this committee is going to be looking at that carefully and would decide, if this project merits inclusion when we look at comprehensively how the TSPLOST funds are going to be used. But that said, if this project is selected, I think that the area of equity that it does address is that it increases access for children, for elderly, for the disabled, for people using bikes to access these intersections. And I think that's an important thing that we need to be remembering when we are considering equity. And in doing so, it increases access for all of those groups of people to public facilities such as the school and local businesses in the case of the Winburn and Antahila intersection. Okay, you can put it on the next slide, please. From the list of project selection criteria, the other boxes I think this project would tick are promoting increased access to public facilities, maintaining or improving air quality, promoting health and safety, and continuing sidewalk construction. And then you can flip to the next slide, please. In terms of the triple bottom line, we feel this project addresses social well-being by improving the intersections, preventing accidents and injuries. Safer intersections would encourage more walking, biking, and improving of air quality. Strollers, bikes, wheelchairs would be better able to navigate these intersections, and safer intersections increase the available routes to access schools and businesses. Okay, last slide. So in closing, improving the interior intersections of Boulevard neighborhood is intended to be a project that complements the ongoing development around us and provides a way for our city to engage in smart planning and responsive strategic development that accommodates the traffic increase in our neighborhood. I realize that you all are interested in having us look at scaling back our projects, and I think that that's something that we could easily do with this one. And I'm happy to discuss that more during the Q&A if you have other questions. So that's it.
Thank you, Sarah. And for the record, we are regular people just like you. We just had a crash course in government spending and transportation special local option sales taxes for what it's worth.
Okay.
We're regular people. Okay, questions for Sarah on improving intersections and safety in Boulevard? Now, Sarah, in your project proposal, you said that the streets that you had mentioned, the intersections are illustrative. They may not be the ones that you do work on. It just depends on what the studies ultimately say and recommend. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. And the neighborhood association has a listserv, and we sent out a request for information to kind of poll the neighborhood and see what people said. And these two came up the most, but we could do a wider scope to see if there's other intersections that would actually necessitate more. I mean, one that comes to mind is the intersection of Satula and Prince and Easy Street. That it seems to be an intersection that has a lot of hiccups and issues too. But I put this together pretty quickly, so so I was kind of going with, what do we know off the top of our heads and what can we talk about?
Gotcha. Yeah. Questions from the committee? Discussion? Madeline, go ahead.
Well, Sarah, I know a couple of Rupersburgs. I know a Tricia, a Hugh, a Michael. I trust you're related to all of them.
I am. Michael is my husband, Hugh is my father-in-law, and Tricia is my mother-in-law.
So, Michael, well, welcome. Please give them my regards. Would you speak briefly to Chase Street Elementary School? Does that play much of an impact in the rallying around this particular flag for y'all?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. My son is in first grade at Chase Street, and the other day when I was walking him home from school, I was trying to count how many children I think use that intersection, and it's about 20 at least. So, and that's just families, or there's at least 20 families I think that utilize that intersection. So, but I think that the residents on Linden and Dubose, with or without children, are very concerned about traffic at that intersection as well.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for this.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Discussion from the committee? All right, Sarah, I think it was pretty straightforward. I think we get to what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
I hope it was short and sweet.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, committee, we are at the end of our agenda, and we will come back here Wednesday for a few more projects, and then we're going to try and have some discussion. And Keith, I'd like to talk with you about how we can best facilitate that, or how I can best facilitate that. Because we're not gonna, it's gonna be hard to talk about 87 projects, but I think that we have some techniques and strategies that have worked in the past to get a good discussion going.
All right. Yeah, I would suggest somehow you focus it by project though, so you don't want to open it up to the floor to 187. To 87 questions. So,
okay.
But that's up to you. But we can talk.
All right, we'll talk. Well, thank you, committee. Thanks for your questions and remaining focused, and thank you to our presenters. And I will see you all on Wednesday. Have a good night. Be safe.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks for talking.
Mhm. I was gonna say be safe driving home or biking home or walking home, but I think I'm the only one who's not home. Well, Scott's at the shop. Scott has to get home. Keith, I guess you have to get home. You look like you're in
Eventually.
the office.
Eventually.
Surely.
Yeah, if you could hold them, if you can give me just a minute, Lauren, to let me stop the live stream and
Sure.
oh, you gotta stop it on this screen.